guys, we're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Dan Goodman and Joe Riggio. I always mess it up, and I even wrote. I do this all the time. RIDG space EO, because that's how I would perceive and read it. But you guys have been with the Varsity House, owners of the Varsity House, co-owners, CEOs, partners of the Varsity House since 2006, I believe, and have grown that to a 20,000 square foot location and are looking at expanding.
Yes.
And you have the Business of Strength podcast, and you are a mentor to gym owners as well. So there's a lot and have qualifications as trainers yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want that to get lost, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that either, because that's probably not why people want to listen or what they want from you guys. Did I leave anything out of that?
No, that's about it. I mean, I started the company in 2006. Very typical meathead journey, just love training, love sports, kind of always circle back to the weights. I was going through college, a lot of social family pressure to maybe go to med school, physical therapy school. I wound up getting a grad assistantship and staying and doing my master's. And I was training people all along. So since I was about 19 years old, I had kind of had a life-changing moment when I was a little bit younger and really wanted to be an entrepreneur at like a young age, like 14, 15. So knew in my back of my head I wanted to own a business. But, like I said, family pressure, social pressure, nobody really understood like training or open up a gym was like a viable business. So everybody was like, you could be a doctor, you can go to school and get good grades, be a physical therapist. So that was kind of the route. I was a scientist. I was a biology, molecular biology. I was interviewing for PhD programs after that, and I was just like, I was going because that's what I was being told to do, but I was miserable. I was like, there's no way I want to do this for the next 20 years. And I was driving back up the Parkway in New Jersey from an interview down at Temple University, and I was like, I called my mother, and I'm like, I'm opening up a gym. I'm done with this crap. My life always circled back to the weights. It was my solitude, it was where I found, my own confidence and stuff like that as a kid. So, fast forward, I didn't have any money. So fast forward, I worked for a bunch of people for a few years, opened up in 2006. In walks Danny Goodman, college football player, needed help with his personal strength and conditioning. So I was his coach for the first 3 years. But we started working together right away in 2006. He wanted to make some extra money. He was very interested in the gym game as a business and kind of what he was going to school for. So I said, all right, man. He's kind of poking me to, do business with me and stuff like that. I said, hey, go get me some kids. Make me some introductions.
Yeah.
So the next day he rolls up with a carload of kids with his little brother and a bunch of friends. Said, get in there and train, you bunch of wimps, right?
It made it easy.
Yeah, it made it easy. And then, fast forward 3 years, I kind of had outstayed my welcome in the space that I was sharing with somebody else because my business was growing and I trained mostly high school and college football players. So, weights clanging and banging, heavy metal and gangster rap all day. And he had like a little basketball skills and drills program. It was like little kids and shit, right? So like, moms are coming in and, Tupac's like, fuck this, fuck. And the mom's like, he's like, you got to turn that down. He's got like 3 little girls over there doing shooting drills. And, I got a couple kids with their shirts off, nose torquing and chalking up and, going bananas. So I had to get out of there. I was basically asked to leave, and the timing was right. Dan was graduating. He said, look, man, I really want to do this gym thing. I'd love to do it with you. You've been a great mentor to me. You've been a great friend. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it regardless. So either we do it together. He's like, I don't want to open up a gym across the street from you.
Yeah,
and shit.
It was also 2009. There was no jobs.
Right.
There was, I didn't know what I wanted to do other than hang out in the gym all the time, and this is a natural fit.
Right. So we started formulating a plan. He graduated in December of 2008, right? And we started meeting. We went to a bar, of course, over a couple beers, inked up a bullshit operating agreement on a napkin, had 3 more beers, got really excited about what we thought was going to be the master plan. And then that following spring, we moved to our second location, my second location, the first location we shared, which was a smaller version. Absolute dump, no AC, barely, no windows, smelled like a wet dish rag. It was like it flooded a bunch of times, but it was ours and we loved it and we crushed it there for, about 5 years before we built the current headquarters, which is that 20,000 square foot facility. And why we got into the business consulting, and that's kind of been a real big part of the business growth, I think for us was there was nobody doing it. And every time we went to a workshop, a seminar, we came out in 2005. I was out here when you guys did the original Elite FTS like workshops. It was like Alwyn Cosgrove, Joe D, Wendler at your old facility, and then you guys did a workshop that following summer, I believe, at Joe D's place in Jersey. And I was at both of those, and I'm like, man, I was following Zach Evanash, who's a good friend of ours now, and it was like, man, if these meatheads from Jersey can do it, so can we, right? They're flesh and blood just like us, you know. So what's the differentiator? These guys were really good coaches. I said, well, we got to get a little bit better at business, and so coaching other people in business really helped level up our game and forced us to go out and find business mentors and stuff like that, and that's kind of just been a big segment of what we do now. And now it's a completely separate and fast-growing business. We've basically doubled that business this year. It's been really great.
Yeah, so to jump forward, what you have an event coming up, I believe, and then what are you looking at doing over the next year? And then we'll kind of go back to the origin story a little bit.
Sure. So like coming up next week, I mean, well, this is like literally live time next week. So whenever this comes out, this might hit, but November 15 and 16, we're running Underground Strength Con with Zach Evanash, a couple guys local here, Anthony Schlegel, some of the guys you know from out here. That's just a big like strength carnival. Training, gym business education, strength events, like kind of like a little competition, like a little strength, some old-timey strength competition, and then business events specifically for the business of strength next year. We start in January 9th and 10th. We have our sales summit. So what we do with the business of strength is we do 2-day workshops, 1 or 2 day workshops, and one-on-one consulting. So most people get their feet wet by coming to a workshop and kind of getting a booklet of information and going home and trying to do it on their own. And then, you know, when they hit the wall or ceiling where they've maxed out their own personal business capacity or whatever, then they come in for some private consulting. And in that regard, we do a deep dive into their business and kind of break it all down for all their, you know, marketing, sales, operations, product, finances, and stuff like that. And we'll kind of specialize in a couple different areas there. In January, we got our sales summit. We do our trainer school, which is a 1-day program that's mostly designed for trainers themselves and people who want to open up gyms, or somebody who's maybe in the startup phase of the business where they're 0 to 250K in that range, and they're just kind of, they've realized that maybe like there's a little bit more to running a gym business than just training, right? And so for the X's and O's of the product, and it's super important, but there's other stuff to manage, right? Like finances, sales, marketing, stuff like that. And we break that down for them, and that's partially training, so we do a lot on the product side during that. We do a marketing summit, and that's a 2-day marketing summit, and that's in May. And then in the fall, we're doing like a financial fitness summit. So then that's all the economics and data-driven numbers behind the gym business. And that one, Dan runs that one. Dan does a phenomenal job with our business finance. It has really leveled up his skills in the last few years in that realm. And that stuff blows people's minds more than anything, because when I look at our business now versus what it was when Dan and I started the business back in the day in 06 to 11, 012, before we really went big and had to learn how to run a business. It was a yellow notepad, names on a pad. Dave was a client. Dave bought 10 sessions. I wrote 10 sessions next to Dave's names, and every time you come in, I'd put a date down that's in the book. It was like bullshit. No POS systems, no digital marketing, none of that crap, right? Now the business is literally like a spreadsheet and data-driven, like from the marketing analytics to the sales analytics to the economics of the financial numbers that Dan stews over every day. Every dollar that comes in, every lead that we acquire, every penny has to be accounted for when you're running a larger operation, which you know very well, right? And you have an even more complex because you have to manage inventory, which is a different thing in and of itself. Yeah,
and margins are way smaller. So you have to deal with that. You mentioned earlier that as a teenager you had this entrepreneur spirit. So what was the catalyst that made you think that you wanted to have your own business?
I grew up broke, right? That was really it,
90% of businesses go out of it.
So you know what it was, Dave? Like I watched my dad was not a, unfortunately I didn't have the greatest like childhood in terms of like the family dynamic. My dad was kind of a deadbeat dad, took off when I was 6, passed away when I was 12, right? But he had a sharp entrepreneurial spirit. And when he was around, he started a tow trucking company, a garbage dumping company, a shrimp company. He was shipping shrimp containers from Louisiana. Like he just knew how to make money, but he was a shyster and never did things right, and kind of would squander it and stuff like that. He just wasn't a great dude, right? So, and then I watched my mom on the other side, which didn't have those type of skills. It just worked like an absolute dog, right? And sitting there as a kid, broke, almost losing our home a bunch of times because mom couldn't pay the taxes and shit. And I was just sitting there like, the only way out of here is I got to learn, I got to study my ass off and get good grades. And I don't want to work for nobody else. Like, I don't want to be at somebody else's mercy. Like, I want to control my own destiny. So I remember sitting on a rock, which I showed a picture recently to our team during a team town hall. Because my son and me go, I still have the lake house where I grew up. So my son and me will go to this rock, and I'll tell my son about it because I'm trying to instill that like entrepreneurial spirit in him. And I can remember sitting on that rock, miserably unhappy with my life, and be like, all right, what do I want to do? I was like, I don't know. I like working out. I like playing football. I like sports. I was like, so I worldwide, worldwide Fit Dynamics worldwide training and apparel, right? I drew this thing, right? And, fast forward a bunch of years, like I said, nobody understood that realm of the business. I always had paper routes, always worked at my mom's restaurants. My mom worked in restaurants. She was a waitress in there cooking or whatever. So every restaurant she worked at from the time I was 12, I bust tables and stuff like that. So I think I just valued having my own money. And, Dan came from a little bit more of like, a middle class, white collar area. But his family always made him work. And when I met Dan, he was hustling. He was working. He was delivering, Chinese food and stuff like that. So I think it made a nice pair. We had that hustle gene, and like I would say the only difference, I'm not super smart. I don't have this unique skill and ability, but my ability is that I will work harder than just about anybody. We have never stopped doing the thing for 20 years.
So if the motivation was basically not to be broke, then why would you go to college and then focus on exercise science and those types of...
I didn't, though. I got my degree in biology, right? Okay. Because I knew that the exercise science was kind of a dead end. Yeah. And again, because I was thinking pre-med, physical therapy, right? And again, it was like, all right, I like the gym thing, but maybe I'll open up a physical therapy office, which in hindsight would have been a great career too. And is like a little cleaner, a little easier, margins are better, right? And you can latch onto insurances and stuff like that. I got really good grades in college, like straight A's, dean's list, graduated tops in my class. Happened to get a grad assistantship to do my master's. And I really enjoyed the research side of things. So I started kind of drifting, and everybody was like, again, my professors, my mom, my parents were like, look, you can go get your PhD, get a professorship job. They make about $150,000 a year. It's like 20 hours a week is like a full-time professor job. It's like pretty cushy. But again, when I got there and they were like starting to interview for PhDs, I was like, how long is this actually going to take me? Because at that time, I'm like 24 already, 25. I'm like, how long is this actually going to take me? And they're like, well, most people it takes 4 to 5 years to finish the classwork, another 1 to 3 years to do your dissertation, and then you got to do like a 2-year postdoc. And it's like, and then you become an associate professor. And by the time you get tenure, it's like another 3 to 5 years. I said, what are we talking here? Like 10, 12 years? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I got to get a goddamn job. So I like I said, I drove up and I went right to work. And I was already training people. I trained people all through college. So I exchanged my first dollar for a training session when I was 19 years old. And I got a job with my next door neighbor growing up. She was a physical therapist. She got me a job with a guy who was training a bunch of Richie people in the area we're in now. And he was training moms and dads, and he knew I was big into sports, big into like athletes and stuff like that. So big into training myself. So he's like, hey, you train, little Johnny and little Susie in the backyard, do some sports performance shit. They throw some med balls around, jump them around the backyard, and I'll train mom and dad. And I was making like $40 an hour, 19. I was like, shit, this beat's working in the pharmacy for $8 an hour. So.
Oh, hell yeah. So Dan, what's your origin story before getting associated with Varsity House?
So I was playing college football at the University of Rhode Island. I went there actually as a preferred walk-on. I think it's really important that is part of the story, because I got there and the expectation of a preferred walk-on is you're never going to make it. So I knew that I had to differentiate myself by training a little bit differently, which led me to Joe. And at the time, we were doing conjugate style training, and that really wasn't the norm with college football in 2004, 5, 6, and 7. And it improved my game to the point where I went from preferred walk-on to full scholarship offensive lineman and a real player and contributor. So for me, coming home, my mom was a teacher. My younger brother was playing sports, so I knew people in town. They're like, hey, like, I was a success story, so it was easy to sell what Joe was doing. I wasn't selling it. I was it. So I was super proud to have that opportunity and play and realize my lifelong goal of being a collegiate athlete. And at the time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, truth be told, I went to school and I didn't get great grades. I was in the thought process, like, I'm here to play football, and, you know, that was pretty much it. You know, party and have fun and
stay eligible.
Yeah, stay eligible. Exactly. And I was getting a business degree. My academic advisor's like, hey, Dan, look, like, your grades, you have to have a 3.3 grade point average to graduate from the business school. So we're going to transfer you over to the communications, you know, department where all of us go to graduate. And I graduated and I looked around. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And, you know, as Joe alluded to before, I was always in the weight room when I was home. All my friends were in the weight room. I was reading the Elite FTS blog and watching YouTube videos, like, as a fan of the game, you know. And when I realized that I could actually turn my passion into a real profession and career, I jumped at that opportunity. And even if it came with really no money, our first year in business, even though I was an owner, partner, I was making $200 a week. And, you know, my parents, when I got the scholarship to go to Rhode Island, I got it as a sophomore. My parents, I was fortunate. They had earmarked some money for me to go to school. And I'll never forget, you remember being in my parents' living room. I was like, hey, it's like, you know, in Step Brothers, we like pitched them. I was like, hey, Ma, Dad, like, we're going to do this gym thing. And they're like, okay, well, like, let's see the business plan. I was like, oh, well, Joe, where's that napkin?
Here's a napkin.
Where's that napkin with all the numbers? And my parents were like, you know what? Like, we're gonna give you a shot, as long as is the only thing that they asked us to do, or really asked of me, is like, you can't quit. Like, you got to do this, and you got to go all in on this. We don't care what it takes. They gave me $25,000, and I was able to buy into a company then that, you know.
I was doing about $100,000, $150,000 on my own. I had about 50 clients. I had a nice business. It was like pretty much semi-private and private training for athletes only, no adults, except one dude who's still with us, Lance, who's become a close personal friend of ours. And honestly, it was like, we jokingly say in a lot of our like business workshops, like, we just, you know, we were too stupid to quit, you know, and like, you know, he needed a job. I desperately needed some help, and I had reached like a capacity issue where I was training 40, 50 sessions a week. I had taken like 5 days off in 3 years. You know, I was training in the area that we were in. We had a big Jewish community. So, like, I would have 4 or 5 kids that want to train Christmas morning. And I fucking went to train because that was $500 in my pocket. I, like, paid for Christmas that year. You know what I mean?
Part of our partnership origin story that's important to note as well is one of the conversations was I said to Joe, like, he was going away for, I think, for your first vacation in however many years. And it was Grand Cayman. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, with Mark Torrey, who's
and I was like, well,
yeah.
Who's going to train? Like, who's here to train? He's like, oh, I'm closing the gym. And I'll never forget, I asked you, well, when you close the gym, what happens? I don't make money. And I said to you, not to be like an asshole, but I'm like, well, that doesn't seem like a business to me.
Right. And it wasn't even meant to be like that. I think he was a kid. He was a 21-year-old kid.
I wasn't saying it like that.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what the fuck, man? And I'm like, well, I didn't mean it like that. You know, I just said, oh, why don't you flip me the key and I'll open, or I'll do something so that you can keep this thing going. And I think that was like a revelation, at least to give me the opportunity to say, hey, well, two of us is better than one of us. And at the time, right place, right time, as is the case for most businesses, being 22 or 23, I didn't care about working 7 days a week. I didn't care about living home. I didn't care about making no money. So at the time, making me a partner, I was basically free labor for years.
So what did this napkin look like? I'm very interested to know. You know,
it was at Cornerstone.
Cornerstone Bar in Hillsdale. You know, a wet napkin with beer stains on it. But
Still
basically, you know, at the time when we came in, I had a little bit of like I said, the business existed for about 3 years. Was profitable, made money, did okay. You know, I paid myself a decent living, right? but I had to get out of space, so we started looking for space. And basically, the operating agreement was, if anybody quits in the first 5 years, you get nothing, right? The original split on the business was 60-40. I had 60, Dan had 40. We've evened that up since, and now we're equal partners on everything. And it was basically like, I'm gonna do the product, be the head coach, the product, and the educational side. I have the tie to the university that I train at, so I'm like, I'm going to grab some interns. I'll be able to snag some interns from the university. So I'll run the education. I'll do all the trainer development. I'll find all the cool stuff like coming out to Elite, West Side, stuff like that. Like, who's doing the best stuff there. And Dan was going to help primarily with the marketing and sales, which he did, right? Because he was younger, he had connections in the community. He had just finished up, like I said, recently in the minds of the community. He was still just graduating college, so he knew all the coaches in the local town. So as soon as we partnered up, it was like, all right, you're going to go out and get business and help market the business, and I'm going to make sure the product and the people that we got running the business are doing what they're supposed to do. So every day when we did that, we went to work. I did literally an anatomy and physiology, biomechanics, and exercise science lesson every day for the first 2 years with him and the guy Mike, who's now our GM of our headquarters and our first quote unquote intern. Who now, if Dan was making $200 a week, Big Mike made $250 every other week and worked twice as much. It was working 60 hours a week. But again, he was another guy. First day of class, he comes into class, he's wearing an Inzer T-shirt, and I was like, this guy must lift. So we became we struck up conversation. I was like, all right, I was like, Dan, I think I got a guy who's, he's too stupid to say no. He wants to be a strength and conditioning coach, right? So we bring Big Mike in. Big Mike winds up literally turning out to be the greatest employee in all of strength and conditioning for the last 15 years. He's an amazing human and world-class strength guy, and competes nationally in strongman and stuff like that. Super strong dude, and he's just a great guy. So the three of us were literally like the three stooges in terms of business, but we trained our asses off, and the product was awesome, and we were crushing kids. And at one point in time, I think we had 11 high school kids that could all bench and squat and deadlift over 500 pounds, bench 400 pounds. We had animals in that place, animals. And what we lacked in amenities, moms would walk into this place and they'd be smelling it. It literally smelled like a dish rag. It was disgusting, right? There was not a window in the place, right? And it was just like a dungeon. And, it was not a place where most adults would want to train. And then, the first 2 years we were in business together, 09 and 010, we almost went out of business by November, because we only trained football players. And we weren't the sharpest business people. So August would come, we'd be waving everybody out the door, to go to camp. And I'm turning pale white, and I'm looking at Dan. I'm like, yo, we're going to be out of money by November, right? The cash flow is going to be gone. So we had gone out and flew out to Louisville to meet with Pat Rigsby. Do you know that name? So Pat's an OG business coach in the industry. Pat was running a 2-day sales summit, and Dan and I went out there literally like deers in the headlights, and they're talking front end offers, conversion rates, all data analytics on sales, and I'm they're speaking hieroglyphics, Sanskrit, right? Holy smokes!
What's your attrition percentage? What is attrition?
Yeah, exactly. What is it? Is it clients leave? I was like, nobody leaves our business. He's like, all right, guys, you need help. And basically, Pat was like, I think I found what the problem is, boys. He's like, whoa. He's like, you don't know shit about business, right? And we took that to heart, man. We took that, and we when we got home, we were like, all right, man, the training thing we got going on is pretty damn good. We had a good product. We had a good training model. The training was hardcore and badass. And I said, we probably don't need to go to another hammer strength workshop or something like that, right? And no offense to any of those things. They were great, but it was I hadn't read one book on business. I had a master's degree in biology, molecular biology, minor in chemistry, had read every Russian journal, read everything that was ever on Elite, everything that was on T-Nation, everything Westside had put out, right? All the old original Louis articles, right? And I had never spent 1 second studying business. And after that changed. On the way home, I ordered a bunch of books and got to reading, and kind of the rest is history there.
So during those original years, if I'm to take a more broad overview of this, when it was just you, if we have position statements, right? And you have 7 or 8 positions that you're doing. You're doing sales, you're doing the coaching, you're doing the janitorial work, you're doing the management. So you have all these position statements that are all kind of falling on you. You bring him in, right? Then you run into this dilemma of, okay, you're going to do what a lot of gym owners or just business owners in general will do is when they bring somebody else on, they'll move over just the shit that they don't want to do, but they don't move over the entire position. So when you say that the sales and the marketing went to him, was it just the aspects of the sales and marketing that you didn't really want to do and you kept with the other main things, or did the whole position move? Great question. Well, that creates conflict in the first years.
Oh, we had tons of conflict. We stepped on each other's toes all day and night for 5 years, you know, because like before. So again, in the original start of leveling up the business aspect and our business knowledge, we primarily focused on marketing and sales, right? And that's great because you're adding, in a sense, like adding rocket fuel to the business, right? It's like you know, putting a bigger engine in a car, right? So yes, we got more leads. Yes, we improved our outreach, but in terms of like the business structure, we had not studied any of that stuff yet, like in terms of leadership and business structure. So, you know, at first, when we said Dan was going to do marketing and sales, that just meant that you were going to also do marketing and sales. Yeah. Right? It wasn't like you were going to own those seats and create marketing calendars, marketing directives, brand script, and create messaging and all that type of stuff. It was like, hey, man, like, you're going to go to these schools and watch these games on a Friday. I'm going to go to these schools, watch these games. We're going to try and talk to these coaches. I'm going to talk to these coaches, right? So we just multiplied what I was already doing in a sense, right? Yeah. And that went on for a bunch of years. And again, as we got deeper down the rabbit hole of business structure and realizing that there, like, again, in any business, there's pretty much 6 key seats, right? You got your leadership seat, you got marketing, sales, operations, product development, or your head coaching position in the gym, and finances, right? And again, like you look at this business here, they're all the same. They're just, you're either selling products or selling service, right? In a sense, like time-based service. So once we figured that out, you know, started working with a company called EOS, Gino Wickman's company, right? Reading books like Traction and so forth. Those are books that really define how to structure a small business. Then we realized that having somebody in a seat, owning a seat, they don't have to do everything, but they're going to own the result. So like, I'm the head of marketing now. I own the result of marketing. I have a lead sheet, and each business that we have has to get generate X amount of leads per week, per month, per year, per quarter, right? And that's my job to make sure the messaging and the process is set up in stone. I don't do everything. We have a digital media company. We have a social media company. Now the business has grown. We have other things happening. I have assistants and people that help me with the marketing, but I own the result. Back then, it was just multiplication. You know, we all trained. You know, we got busy. I trained 40 hours a week. I brought in Dan. Great, you're going to train 40 hours a week, and whatever time we have left, you're going to help me with sales and marketing too, right? And then that was pretty much it. And Big Mike became the janitor. Oh yeah.
Well, the other problem that you run into with all that is, as you know what these certain positions are, and like in a dream world, if you're to say, hey, if I had a dream world, you know, I'd have somebody just all they do is social media. Somebody all they do is paid ads. All they do is, you know, the inventory management or whatever, and you end up with, say, 20-some positions where you're never going to get some of those positions. The work required to do the position may only be 5 hours per week, but you can't hire somebody part-time to do it because then they really don't have that full buy-in for that. A lot of the consultants that you would hire to do that, or if you were to outsource that, they do like a half-assed job. They don't do that well of a job, so you end up being stuck until it scales high enough for that to become that full-time position. Somebody ends up having to do those positions with all the other stuff. And when it's a gym business, that can become problematic because the thing that people enjoy typically the most is working with the clients. Yeah. Then everything else becomes not just second priority, but sometimes like a gap between second and 20. Yeah. You know, in business, sometimes those other things are the main things. Sure. You know, because you got a product, but you got to market, you got to service it, and all that and so forth.
I always encourage people to go with this model. This is the one I have myself. To me, the big advantages of this are the adjustability on our pads and the wide foot plate and the adjustability of the roller pads. With those adjustments, there are a million different variations you can do on this. And to me, for the investment, a couple $100 extra bucks above our other models, it's a no-brainer. So
you know, I think like when I look at it right now, it's like, you know, there's different stages in every business, and you know, your money needs change as the business grows. And it's ironic that most people think like the bigger a business gets, the more secure it is, but it actually becomes more fragile in some ways, right? Because it becomes more complex. Yeah. Right. And since we didn't have great financial acuity in the beginning, just to give you kind of a dynamic, like I was the CEO technically, right? And it was mostly just because I was older and started the business, right? And had a little bit more business experience than maybe Dad did at the time. Didn't mean my skill set was better for that role, right? It's just natural positioning, right?
Yeah.
And I did the books, and we had a bookkeeper and an accountant. We didn't have a financial person doing the books. I was managing a checkbook. Like I wasn't doing projections. I wasn't, setting up budgets and stuff like that. I was just like, hey, do we have enough money to pay the bills this week? That's it. Can we make payroll, right? And that's pretty much it. So as the business changes, and this is something for all the gym owners that listen to this, it's like, keep the business as simple as humanly possible for as long as humanly possible, and stash as much money as you can, because money is ultimately a tool that you can use to leverage yourself out of doing some of the things like you're talking about. Like it wasn't until we were almost $1 million generating business. We built our new headquarters. We were doing very close to 7 figures at that point in time. We had never spent a penny on marketing. Dan and I did it all ourselves and bootstrapped it all. Other than paying for like a graphic designer to design a flyer or stuff like that, it was real basic. But like we bootstrapped the website cheap, like people we knew. We never paid for digital ads. Our marketing back then, especially because we had 2 aspects of the business: athletes and then 6-week transformations for adults. We did 2 of those a year. The athletes, me and him went to 50 football games, wrestling matches, and track meets a year. Like that was our marketing. You go to these 50, I'm going to go to these 50, right? And we would just be out in the community. And then with the adults, one of the things I took away from Pat when we got back was the idea of a 6-week transformation. Pat says to me, and I always, I hope Pat, if he hears this or listens to me, he always breaks my chop because I bastardize his accent, right? Because he's got that thick Kentucky drawl, right? And Pat's like, so what happens in the gym from 6 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon? It's like, we fucking lift weights. That's what happens. We're banging and clanging,
It's
Pat.
the best time of the day.
Best fucking time of the day. Right? We get in at 10. We prognosticate for an hour about nonsense. We train from 11 to 1, and then we go eat lunch, and then we come back and we get ready for the afternoon. The kids like we live. It was
a great time.
It was a great time. It was the best times. We live in an area where there's a lot of parochial schools, so like we would get kids coming in pretty early, like 2:30, right? So about 2:30, kids would start rolling, and we get to training, right? And that's it. You put the volume on 10. The weight rooms would be set up. We'd have everything going, and then it was just full blast for from 2:30 in the afternoon till originally 9:30 at night. I mean, we'd be there. We'd be closing the door at 10 p.m. every night, right? So, but as the business grew, we grew the 6-week transformation. It became a multi-million-dollar product for us. Our first transformation, we ran with 27 people. It was the adults of a lot of the people. So my friend Lance, who's our finance guy, who was the first adult and only adult that I trained in the original gym, he wore me down one day telling me how he was athletic and he was an athlete and he competed in tennis and this and that. So I was like, I'm going to fucking brutalize this guy, and so go away. And I absolutely smashed him into oblivion. Box jumps, ladder drills, jumping rope, right? His feet were like flippers for 2 weeks. He couldn't move his legs. He loved it. 20 years later, fucking guy won't go away, right? He's still, he's a great dude, right? My son calls him Uncle LD. Great human being, right? We do the 6-week transformation. He literally signs up his wife and all their friends. Our lawyer, long-term lawyer, guy named Justin DeCrescenti, phenomenal human being. Just believed in it. I think like every business, like nothing's ever luck, because we had the ability to get people to believe in what we were doing, right? And we put a good product, and they could tell from the get that we were serious. We took ourselves very serious. We were always very professional. I treated the job, the second I made the decision that I was going to be a professional trainer, I was a professional trainer. I was a pro all the way through. How I spoke to kids, how I showed up. I've never, ever been late once, ever, unless it was an absolute fucking tragedy happening. You know what I mean? I took that shit seriously. And I remember like having conversations with Dan many times when we started up, like how we dress, how doing our hair, like everything matters, because nobody gives a shit about, 2 dipshits from Jersey running a gym. Like they can go anywhere. It's not like when you show up to Ohio State and so-and-so's the strength coach. Like you had no choice. Here it's all a bunch of kids with money and stuff like that. And they're like, all right, these guys are dicks. Let's go somewhere else. Right. So we came back with a 6-week transformation. We had 27 people do that program. All 27 of them signed up for the gym. We're like, shit, maybe we'll start training adults here. So we started opening up a couple morning classes, and that really transformed the business. Fast forward, that was 2011. We ran that first one, the spring of 2011. So we went to Pat's Sales Summit in 2010, come back in 2011. We start the first 6-week transformation. We sell it out. We started adult membership. Fast forward now, that program's made almost $5 million, right? As a program, we do that twice a year. We've done that twice a year for 15 years now. It'd be 15 years, and it's still one of our biggest programs for adults. And then we had athletes. So, you know, as the business grows, the finances grow, we've been able to outsource more. So now we have a digital ad agency that runs our ads, does our websites, stuff like that. We have a social media team that we have a company that we use for that, right? But you don't have to. You just have to find the time. And I think time management and a new business for young gym owners is finding the right balance of, you know, the product side of it and training and, you know, running the business. And I think, like, if I could go back and do a little things differently, I just would have put some more guardrails around that to focus a little bit more on the business side and made it like, all right, I'm only going to do 25 sessions a week, and then I'm going to hire somebody, because then at that point I won't be able to run the business. But I didn't think like that. It's like, oh, I'll do 50 sessions and I'll work on the business on Sunday mornings for 2 hours, and that's not enough.
Yeah, well, it's a tough call though too, because when you're going to do half the billable hours, and then you're going to bring in half of the revenue.
It's tough. I mean, it's definitely a balance, you know. But again, the only way you scale a business is with people, right? The two differentiating factors that I would say in all the gyms that we've seen, you know, we see over 100 gyms a year in our consulting company and our workshops, right? Individual gyms. The successful ones have really good marketing and have really good people, right? And if you can't scale those two things, you're never going to be successful, because at the end of the day, to the average individual, the average Joe, you know, like our avatar, our 40 to 60-year-old busy mom and dad, or our, you know, high school, junior high school, or grammar school athlete, the X's and O's are way less important than, are they having fun? Are there cool people there? And we all know that marketing wins the game, right? McDonald's is not the best hamburger in the world, but they're a multi-billion-dollar company in every country on planet Earth because of, you know, phenomenal marketing and systems and people that run that company. So that's kind of some of the lessons that I've learned there. Like, you can I hate to say this in front of a guy who has prioritized training his entire life and made that your thing, but like, it's okay to have a A- product or a B+ product and have a great set of people who care and are good mentors and good coaches. If the product is not, like, you know, you don't have to be Charles Poliquin to run a really good gym.
Well, you have to look at who you're training.
Correct.
Right? I mean, you can have A knowledge, but you're never going to have more than a C student.
Correct.
You know, so that's, now going back to the earlier years, what were some of the pain points when you were trying to scale before that clinic? Because that's where a lot of the people that you're going to mentor now, I mean, that's kind of what they're dealing with. One of the things that kind of comes to my mind is, you know, that first off, they need to know their numbers. So we're just going to assume they kind of know their numbers, but they don't. But they need to know the difference between a gross margin and a net margin. But you can only grow and scale if you have that revenue to actually grow and scale. And as you're actually growing a little bit, the temptation to just keep paying yourself more becomes that big temptation. So then the net's never really there, the cash flow is never really there to be able to hire somebody else, unless at some point in time you determine. I did it based upon tax brackets. You know, like, here's where this tax bracket is. I go to the next tax bracket, I'm going to have to pay more. Right. So I'm just going to sit at this tax bracket, and then that allows cash, you know, to be able to grow. And then now we're at a stable level, we can actually bring somebody in because there is the cash flow to be able to do that. But what most people will do is not make that decision, just say, look, I'm just going to pay myself that extra 10 or 15 grand. You know, as that as an example, was that one of the things that you were kind of paying attention to? And what were some of the other conflicts you had early on?
In terms of tax brackets, definitely not.
Well, it's just as far as how much you're going to pay yourself.
Yeah, of course.
Again, the biggest pain point in the business, the biggest in every business that we work with, is the lack of financial acuity. I could manage a checkbook. That's it. At that time, I had never read, or studied, or understood any type of economics of business, right? It was simply money in, money out. You know, hey, we took in $10,000 this month. We paid all our bills. There's $5,000 left over. Here's $2,500 for you, $2,500 for me, right? And we kind of ran it like seat of our pants. So the pay that we took, the irregularity that it was, meant that there was a lot of ups and downs. You know, there were plenty of times when Dan and I didn't take a paycheck, and there was plenty of times when Dan and I took too much of a paycheck probably because it didn't stabilize cash flow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I was going to open up a gym right now, brand new, not being who I am right now, I would recommend that you go out and you have to study these things. You got to get some books on, business finances and stuff like that, or go take some courses in that. Not college courses. You can take there's a lot of outside the educational realm that.
For people listen to this, there's two metrics that, we deal with. We run a very open book company in terms of finances and things like that. When we went on our growth plan, which I'm sure we'll get to in a bit, we opened personal training businesses. Those personal training businesses, Varsity House Personal Training, there's 2 of them open now with the goal of having 5 in the next 3 years. There's 2 things that we went into that with our eyes wide open is, okay, well, what is our price point? And what is the capacity per session? So for somebody that's listening to this, our biggest issue in the beginning, and when we really had those troubled years financially, we had no idea what our capacity was outside of like, hey, there's 3 of us, we could take 25 kids, but we weren't monitoring how much money per hour we were actually making, and we had no idea what the market was willing to pay us because I was 23, you were 33, or like, shit, somebody's willing to pay us $500 for 10 weeks of training. Cool. We had no aiming point of what it was actually going to take to sustain us as a business as it pertained to price per hour. And we were hiring people and staffing based on feeling, not fact.
I was just making up salaries like, 43,000.
Yeah, like
there was magic wand.
There was no method to that madness at all. Whereas I look at the personal training businesses now, we know exactly how many clients we need before we open the schedule to be a broader schedule. We're in a business of selling time for money. So if you staff out 50 sessions a week for 50 clients, and you're gonna die a slow death as a business because you're not gonna make the money to be able to sustain. So it's price point. Are you charging what you're worth, and capacity in given sessions? And you have to know, what your make or break is. Hey, I'm having a session here on the floor. I could take 8 people. Well, if only 3 show up all the time, that's not good, right?
So how do you define charging what you're worth? Because that's an interesting
I think you got to look at the market, right? So my spin on it. I mean, I know where Dan's head is at, right? But I think just to clarify a little bit, you have to charge. I think this is a concept that we try to teach gym owners. Remember, when you decide to go into business, you're creating a business for you. Right, you're going to serve clients in a certain way. You have a product that's going to serve them. You're going to fulfill a need, a pain point. You're going to solve a problem, right? We solve the problem of helping people with their fitness, right? Giving them customized plans, guiding them every step of the way, holding them accountable, right? So we're a personal training business, right? It's not an open gym. So whether that's athletes or adults, those are the pain points that we solve, right? Fitter, healthier, happier, move better, less pain, stuff like that, right? But the idea of creating a business is for me. I went into business for me. That 14-year-old kid who was sitting on a rock, miserably unhappy with their home life and shit, was like, I'm going to start this business. And then what do? We give it away, right? And we don't charge enough money to have the business be truly viable. Like our original price points were like $150 a month and stuff. And again, like I said, like when I talked to Jim, I was like, how come you're not like the average price point for personal training in our area, let's say is like $100 an hour for one-on-one sessions. And I see somebody charging 60. Why are you charging so? Well, it makes it easy, blah, blah. I said, yeah, but it's not enough money. You think about $60 an hour, you can only take X amount of sessions. Your max capacity is this. And they're like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. I just thought and it's so I think like, when you create a business, you have to look at the economic model of where you're at. And you have to work it backwards. Like, all right, our rent's going to be this, payroll's going to be this. I'm going to have this many sessions. In order for this to work and pay me what I want, and I look at the end result, what do I want to make from this company? And let's just say, again, new trainer, young trainer, most people would be excited to make $100K, right? Let's say, all right, if this business is to pay me $100K and we're going to run it like a pretty reasonably profitable business, let's say at 25%, that means that the business has to generate $400K in business, right?
Yeah.
In order to generate $400K in business, with a capacity of this, I need this many clients paying this, right? So you just reverse engineer it, but it never, in my head, it never started with what do I want to make. It was just like, what am I afraid to charge the customers? Like, what are they willing to pay? And it was like, all right, we had another business coach come in at one point when we opened up the current headquarters, and he's like, how much do you guys want to make? And at that time we were like, we want to make $250 a year each. Right. And he's like, all right. He's like, what do you charge a month now? We're like, about $159 is our average price point. It was like $150. People charge less, right? And he's like, so he does the math. He goes on the board. His name's Ryan Lee. Ryan Lee's an OG, like one of the top marketers, business guys in the business, right? And I paid him $10,000 for the day to come school us, right? And a shout out to Ryan. That was worth every penny because it changed our perspective. And he gets up on the board. He's like, you guys need about 1,000 clients. He's like, you think you can handle 1,000 clients? And we were like, it wasn't that many, but it was a ton. And we were like, holy shit. Like, no, we can't. He's like, you got to change your model then. He's like, you got to double the prices. He's like, if you double the prices, now you only need this. He's like, can you do that? I was like, yeah, we could do that. He's like, there you go. He's like, you're just grossly undercharging people. He's like, you guys got a fully customized personal training product and you're charging the same thing as curves down the road. And we're like, oh shit, we didn't think about it. We're just afraid to, we're afraid people are going to say no. You're afraid of that fear of rejection or whatever you want to call it,
To your question and point about how do you know what you're worth is if you could have so you say you take an arbitrary number, $500,000. So you have $500,000. Okay. How many clients is it going to take to get there? And you can do the math. 100 clients is going to be this much per month. 200 clients is this much per month. 300 clients is this much per month. And then you can work back on that capacity of saying, okay, well, it's going to require me, usually about each coach could serve 80 to 100 people on their own. And that's really that conversation that we had with Ryan was eye-opening because it's like, holy shit, we're already feeling a level of burnout, so to speak, and we're going to have to double our clientele. At that moment, we said, you know what, we don't want to work with double the people. We want to provide value in a service that, is different than what our competitors locally are doing. So let's layer in nutrition. Let's layer in the in-body scale. Let's get better equipment. Let's provide some service and amenities that are valuable and hire coaches that have real experience, not, a 21-year-old intern. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we went out and we decided to spend money on true strength coaches. We decided to spend money on real strength equipment when before that it was just like,
shit.
Yeah, it sucked. So, we made a decision on a price point that we felt comfortable with. And then we knew exactly, okay, we worked back from there and said, okay, well, this is our scorecard. This is how many clients we need. And based on our attrition percentage that we now understood, okay, we're going to have to gain 3 clients a week for a year to get to where we need to be as a business. And it gave us resident perspective. It's like a training plan. Okay, here's the goal. Here's our, this is where we want to go. Okay, well, as soon as you figure out the goal, you work backwards on a training plan. The same thing is applied as a total revenue. Hey, this is the total revenue goal. This is how many clients is going to take at this price point. And obviously along the way, there was certain times where we overshot the price. We're like, oh shit, we better back up here while we continue to build some value and get real results. So, people could speak of what's happening here and the social proof. Once the social proof started to roll that it was acceptable for people to be paying $300 or $400 a month for personal training, if people are getting results and they're enjoying the community, it's like anything else. Will start to roll in your favor. But from that conversation until now, we've more than doubled our price point, and we have less clients at HQ today, making considerably more money, which has, enabled us to it's probably the reason why we're sitting here today, even as a business, because the path that we were on was not a sustainable one.
So there's lots of different variations of the dead bug. One of the reasons why I like utilizing a band where you're just gonna hook a band up kind of over your head and have it here is because doing this engages the lats. It also engages the core and pulls the rib cage down. One of the big things people struggle with in the squat is they flare their rib cage up. Again, we don't want this kind of open scissor position. We wanna make sure we're connecting the rib cage into the pelvis so we have better lumbopelvic orientation. So utilizing the band, we'll just kind of bring this up here. That way we have constant tension into the lats, into the core, bring the knees up. Again, really focusing on keeping the rib cage down. Now, from here, lower the leg, come back up, alternate.
And also, you know, I think a lot of things in that time frame too, Dave, like there was a lot of businesses were going bigger, more volume.
Hell yeah.
And this micro gym thing that's really hitting now wasn't really a thing. Like even now though, when I speak to a lot of gym owners, I'm like, what's the next move? I got to get a bigger gym. And it's like, hold on, dude. Like let's chill, because we're probably not optimized, and maybe it's better to open up another smaller gym in another community and just maximize that community as well, right? You move, you know, go an hour down the road, open up another community, extract from that community. Extracting from a new community is going to be easier than extracting another 150 members from the same community, right? It gets harder as it's just, again, I always use the analogy of bench pressing, right? You know, 135, no problem. 225, high school. You know, like 315, college. 405, most people never hit it, and you know, other than yourself, you know, most people only know a handful of people who could ever even sniff 500-pound bench press, right? Well, it's the same thing in business. Getting to your first 100K, brainless. Right? Getting to 250 takes a little work. Getting to $500,000, some people never get there. Most people never even sniff $1 million gym, and to go beyond that takes incredible amounts of work, right? And like again, so sometimes going from $1 million to, let's call it $1.5 million, which is like every gym owner's like, yeah, it's a bigger gym, and you know, we gotta get this thing to 2 million, right? And it's like, all right, well, that might not be worth the work, right? And like maybe you got a professional football player that already squats 500 pounds or 600 pounds, and it's like, is getting him to 650 changing his game? No. So it's like, all right, so the work that it's going to take to go from $1 million
what's the cost
to 1.5, if we just kept it at 1.2 and we found an optimized set point, and that place generates, you know, a 25% revenue for the next 20 years, and you can go off and open up another place because that place is autonomously running, that's a way better business model, right?
Well, you kind of touched on something that's really important, and I think not really understood, is people will understand the concept of, you know, charge what you're worth, right? And it's very easy to go online and say, what's the average salary of X, right? Then you get this range based upon it, like, holy shit, that's like less than what I get now. But you can only, your worth is ultimately determined by what the market is willing to pay, right? So if you don't change the value of what that worth is, you know, so if it's in any other environment, it's increasing the skill sets that are going to enable, you know, the business to generate more revenue or whatever it is. So as you were speaking there, as you're doing that, you're also trying to increase the value, the marketplace value of what it's worth, right? Because a small jump you can probably do painlessly.
Yeah.
And nobody's really going to care.
Right.
But to be able to scale it up to 1.5 or 2 times, but your product isn't better. Right. And in the gym business, the product can be the equipment that's in there, the systems that are operating, the testimonials, the marketing, all those other things kind of feed into all that, to where what I typically see is they'll want to increase the price, but they're not increasing their market value. They may know training very well.
Yes.
And then bitch about the fact that they know training and that they're a better trainer than everybody else, and even go as far as to say the other people just have better marketing, but they're shitty coaches.
Yes.
And it's interesting, right? So in one aspect, they need to learn their product. This other person needs to learn the product a little better, which maybe they don't because they have C students. But at the same time, they're kind of also saying, I should probably learn marketing and how to increase the value of the actual product. But then they won't.
It's perceived value too, right?
Yeah.
And like the one thing, sorry to cut you off there,
okay.
is
20 years, I'm used to it.
in 2012, 2013, I recently, in next week's presentation, I'm going to talk about this, but we were marketing the A students like all the time. That's what we did. And to, you know, to an extent, it helped us. It helped us with notoriety. It helped us locally. And we were in a neighborhood like Joe DeFranco, like he's down the block, like doing awesome things. And we wanted to be like that. So we thought that that's what it was going to take. So we took our pros or pro hopefuls and college kids, and that's all anybody ever saw. And to, you know, normal, you know, Dan's and Joe's, like, it was almost like off-putting to some people, where we started to redirect our marketing focus, where it wasn't just about us or the authority that we were trying to gain in the industry amongst our peers and, you know, the 5 kids that we had to go play in the NFL. And it started to be the kid that was on JV that made varsity, and the kid that was 30 pounds overweight that lost the weight and made the team. And once we started to really focus our energy on the normal freaking people that were coming to the gym, they're just as cool as everybody else.
Yes.
Our business marketing and the social proof of what we were doing locally fucking took off.
Yeah.
And it really was a
Finding the
huge
right
difference.
message was important too. I think,
Yes.
you know, we spent a lot of time, and again, like one of the things that I was kind of passionate about was the marketing side. And so, you know, as Dan kind of worked towards leveling up his skills on the finances and the leadership side of things, I dove down the rabbit hole of improving our messaging, our culture, the perception of what was happening at inside the gym. And like our thing has always been kind of, you know, we've always had like a unique cachet, because our gyms, even the smaller ones, even the personal training studios, which are a little bit nicer, like kind of like poshy looking like training studios, but they still look like a collegiate weight room. It's power racks, dumbbells, all logoed up and branded, so they look cool, and kind of like that live longer, play harder mantra that we use. Really was a unique thing. It's like, hey, we're not just training powder puffs and stuff like that. These guys have trained, you know, collegiate All-Americans, pros, and we help busy moms and dads move better, feel better, look better, be more confident, right? All the things I'm telling to my son now, right? That training and eating clean and like getting up early and doing your push-ups and shit will help you with. I think a lot of that resonated with a lot of the adults. So we did attract originally a lot of moms and dads who still identified as a fit adult, right? And so like when I look at like the original group of people that came in for that first 6-week transformation, coming from my friend Lance and our lawyer Justin, they're both fit people who prioritize health. Their wives at the time, they were all in their early 40s, you know, they're 41, 42. So, you know, at that time, they're all still young enough where they're hanging on to that. So all the moms still wanted to be hot moms. All the moms, you know, they all had like 12, 13, 14-year-old kids and stuff like that, or younger. And like they're still hanging on to that. And that messaging resonated with them. Like, hey, I can still kind of train badass, do cool stuff, and have fun in the gym. I'm training, like, you know, Lance always remarked that, like, I'm on one side of the gym doing the same thing that, you know, a professional athlete is doing, and that was kind of cool. So that kind of was a unique differentiator in the look, feel, and culture inside the business. And I think the Dan's point too is like, we always hired real strength coaches and developed them inside. For a long time, I did all the trainer development. Obviously, I have a background in education. Right after I graduated college and decided not to go forward with my PhD and go into the gym business, I got a part-time teaching position as an adjunct at the school. They offered me a position there, and I've been there ever since. I've been there 21 years now, right? This is my 21st year of adjuncting. I've still kept that job. Every single person we hired originally came from the university. Like the first 6 or 7 employees all came from there. So they were all exercise science, strength coach, a military guy, a phys ed teacher, people that were really into it. They were going into fitness or exercise as lifers. Like, this is the career I want to be in. This is what I want to do. Great. You're going to fit perfect with us. We wanted professionals that want to do this, you know? And I think like Big Mike, our GM and director of sales, he's never wanted to do anything else but be a strength coach and be in the realm of strength and lift weights and compete. He's competed all over the country, right? It's his passion. Right? What better of a type of guy to attract, because he don't have to sell shit, right? He's on the gym floor still every day, all day, helping people, solving problems, right? Selling the gym now. Now when he brings somebody in as a sales console, he's like, hey man, we live this here. This is not just, we're not,
That's who he is.
Yeah, we're not, there's no weekend trainers here. There's no like, you know, I just took a weekend certification course or whatever. Everybody's got degrees. Everybody's got lots of experience. We run tremendous amounts of education through our facility to help foster continuing education and credits. And for the first, up until about 2016, 2017, I ran the internship, and then I started transferring it over to another guy that was running for it, a guy named Sean, who's no longer with the company. He's with us for about 7 years. Sean, master's degree, also taught at the university where I'm teaching as well. Longtime military guy, another guy who competed nationally in strongman, and he kind of took over. So like, again, we had real people doing this. So, you know, there's no like, you know, like you know the industry. My wife, if his wife's name is Dana, my wife's name is Edel. If Edel and Dana want to go get certified and start training people, they go take a course this weekend. They could be training people on Monday.
Yeah, but even at the higher level, a college degree or even a master's degree in this, they'll understand the training aspect, but where they're going to fall short, and this will be a question for your education of when you have these people come in, where they fall short is on just basic communication skills, how to read nonverbals, and then referrals, actually, because they are your main point of referral, to where they can miss 100 referrals a year just because they're not listening to what a client says to be able to see that the door is open, or be so hard on the referrals that they're going to drive the product away, because essentially it's product fulfillment. So they'll know those things, but somehow you have to bring in, and I'm sure that you do, that communication point. And also that it's a soft sale, I guess is what the soft sale point, because they may delegate it off to somebody that's actually going to take it from there, but they have to realize that there's the opportunity for that referral.
Yeah.
And they're not learning that in school.
No.
So now we have a sales team, right? And so again, like as the business grows, things change. You have the money to kind of like pay people to sell and stuff like that. But back in the day, we taught everybody to sell. And like Dan, look, again, I don't have any real special skills. I had to hustle as a young age. I bust tables. I think and Dan worked in service businesses too, where he was like literally like working in, you worked in a gym, he worked in one of the original Parisis, he did stuff like that. And it's like, you got to serve people. So I learned, yes, ma'am, how can I help you? Do you need more water? Stuff like that. And you learn those soft skills by working. I think a big mistake that a lot of college people, man, and I'm teaching 75 college students right now. How many people have jobs in the industry right now that you want to work in? Not a single hand. It's like, all right, well, maybe get out there a little bit and start serving people, because serving people is an energy job. Training a gym is part X's and O's, part entertainment, part mentoring, right? And it's really all about human connection, especially in the private sector level, right? Where, a 50-year-old mom who hasn't seen the inside of a gym in 20 years, who's willing to come pay $1,000 a month for personal training, right? You got to engage her. You got to be cool. She's got to feel like she's got this awesome advocate in her back pocket all the time, right? That's just I just hired this awesome new coach. He's been so great. He's really helped holding me accountable. He's monitoring everything I'm doing. I feel like every time I go in, the sessions are fresh and fun. Do you think she gives a shit about whether or not she's doing a hex deadlift, a barbell deadlift, the back? She don't give two shits. She just wants to come have fun.
She may not be speaking to anybody outside of her own family.
And you walk into Varsity House. Obviously, we never, we've had some people tell us we should have rebranded it and all this stuff, and we were just like, fuck that. Like, our brand is strong. We love our brand. We take a lot of personal pride, and I think that we created a great brand and culture, right? So even when we were going to do the personal training gyms, we had a lot of like business mentors and stuff. They were like, maybe you should call it something else, because Varsity House has kind of like a youth athletic connotation that maybe adults won't resonate with, and we're just like, we'll figure that out on the culture side. And once you get people in, we sell it, right? So we started teaching everybody how to sell. So we would run like, me and Dan just happened to be decent communicators off the gate. He had been coached most of his life. His father's a salesman and owns a like furniture sales company. He worked in service. I worked in service since I was a little kid. Had to communicate with people every day. So I think we just transferred those soft skills over to people. So like we would literally sit down with our coaches when they come in as part of their internships and just be like, all right, like here's the list of things I'm listening for. Like when a client tells me, when a client dabs you up and says, Dave, that was the best session. This is awesome, man. My wife would love this. Ding, 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 ding. Like that. Hey, you want to bring her in next week? Like on me. Have her come try a session or two, right? Stuff like that. And just what to listen for. So now we've gone as far, obviously, as we've gone down the rabbit hole in business, we've created a whole video series. I have a giant sales booklet that's like 35 pages that all new hires got to watch. They got to watch all the videos and stuff like that. So it's a lot more professionalized. But back in the day, we would just sit and powwow about it. Like, hey, we got to get X amount of, we got to get more referrals. Joe, you get a lot of referrals. How you doing it? It's like, well, I'm paying attention.
Speaking about the interpersonal cues, like one of the first things, and obviously we've been out here before, but we come in park and I go to the elite sign, take a picture. I was like, hey Joe, look at the core values on the sign out here. We got to get our core values on our signage, because the values in a company, it sets the precedent for the type of people that are going to want to work in that company as well. And for us, it's hungry, it's humble, it's committed to excellence, and we've added an addendum, a fourth core value of being socially smart. And what does that mean for us? We put together an interpersonal code of conduct that is taught in our internship, and something that we really stress. And it's the acronym SWIFT. And it's to smile. You got to smile when people come in. Like, this is not the you show. Like, nobody gives a shit that you're not feeling well. Like, if you're on our training floor, you're smiling. Like, you have to welcome people and smile. You have to work the room. You can't be sitting down with your water jug just pointing to people like it's a hangout. Right? You have to instigate success. If I know that Dave's been in the gym and he's been using 20-pound dumbbells for 4 weeks, and I know Dave can lift the 25s, it's like, hey, Dave, come on, man. What's going on here? You know, you have to, the F is find friends, like build friendships. That's what the gym is all about.
Introduce people to each other.
Yeah, match them up. Like, if somebody's brand new, what's the biggest limiting factor for people not going to gyms? They're insecure. So how do you dispel insecurity? Pair somebody up, pair a vet up with a rookie, and have them feel like they have somebody in their corner. And last but not least, and you know, some people bust my chops, but sometimes I'll be on the gym floor near the front desk of HQ, and I will thank people for leaving. You know, thank them for coming and wish them well. Hey, thanks so much for coming in today. I really appreciate it. And people will bust my chops. Like, why do you always do that? I was like, without them, we're not here. Yeah. Right? So you can't ever stop being thankful. This is an at-will business. Nobody is forcing anybody to come here. You have to be thankful. These people are paying our bills. Be thankful that they're showing up. So that SWIFT acronym is something that, you know, a lot of times people put core values off to the side and you never revisit them.
Just words on a board.
You know, it's
like, oh yeah, it sounds great. Hard work, commitment, you know, stuff like that.
Here, like, you look at a place like this, and it's why, you know, we've done business with Elite for a long time because of the values and the live, learn, pass on. I'm not looking at anything to know that. Like, we have resonated with that for years, and
I've stolen it many times.
Yeah, but I feel that vibe. I get it. I want to be I've always wanted to be a part of it. And, you know, when you have strong core values that you really hire and fire dependent upon those things, and the acronym of SWIFT is something that we review all the time. And if you have those anchored things in your business, okay, you have your core values. What do they mean to you? That should be day one of your internship, because the X's and O's and the hex deads versus box squats versus free squats versus, it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter, because there's plenty of coaches that know all the X's and O's that are just dickheads. And in private sector, that won't work.
Yeah. The ability to stand for something, you know, and have a mission that's greater than yourself and greater than just, you know, look, at the end of the day, we're just selling fitness, right? We're not solving world peace. We're not building rocket ships or some shit. This ain't SpaceX, right? So everybody's got the same mechanisms, right? They're all teaching, you know, squat, lunge, hinge, push, pull, carry, shit like that, right? They all have, hopefully, they all have, you know, weights, right? They got some barbells and some dumbbells, right? So what really differentiates one gym from the next is the internal culture. And obviously that all starts, you know, with Dan and I. And then filtered down to the people we hire. And like when we sat down and kind of went through some of these stuff, and I see other companies like yourselves who had like a really great set of core values, and those core values are obviously, Dave, a reflection of yourself and your own personal values, and then it kind of translates over to the people you hire and so forth. And you look for other people who are focused, hard workers that you can trust, that are dedicated to the realm of strength, right? That also want to live, learn, and pass it on. They're not selfish with their knowledge, their information, right? They're sharing openly. When I look at us, when Dan and I sat down and we started doing some workshops of like, what do we stand for, and like what's bigger than us, and like what is our mission? Because like, you know, working out ain't exactly a mission, right? So, you know, we were like, all right, well, you know, one of the workshops we did was like, if someone was going to write on your tombstone, like your friends were going to all write like a eulogy about you, what would they say? And it was like, all right, hardworking, you know, so like, you know, hard work, you know, humble, you know, committed, right? And it was like, all right, so those started to come to life, and then you go to define them a little bit more, and what it means to the client to be a part of that, and then what it means for an employee to live that within your business, right? So
well, I think the only way somebody can have longevity in a business that they're in is to have those established core values, and they do come from the founder.
Yep.
And they're easier to define than people make it out to be. where a lot will just ponder it. Like, well, what are the core values? And they just kind of go back and forth. Or probably happens more so is they're going to look at other companies that they aspire to be like, look at their page of core values and say, oh, that's a good one. I'll take that. Where an exercise that I've used with people that I've mentored is I'll have them, just take a moment and write down, 10 people that have had a positive influence on their life at any certain point in time. For me, one example would be my mom was late picking me up for a wrestling practice when I was in junior high. So I'm just running the stairs, just killing time. All the lights are off, and she's really late. So it's like 45 minutes. And the coach walks by and asks me, what are you doing? And all I said was, I'm just sick of getting beat, because I was getting beat all the time. And he says, you outwork everybody else, you'll never lose. Right? So that one statement resonated with me, until now. I can regurgitate it, boom. And so when I went to make that list, it's like Bill Mullen, here's the statement that I made. And so I have this whole list, and if people are doing this, it could be a book character, it could be a movie character, it doesn't really matter. We can all think back on our life and say, here's this one thing that really impacted how I see the world. Then on the other side of the paper, write down 10 people or, 10 circumstances that just pissed you off beyond belief, right? We can all forgive, but we really don't forget. Then write those down. Then Google list of core values and assign a core value to all the positives, and then also the negatives, because that's a violation of the core value too. Then when you're done, you're going to have a list of 5, and those are in us.
Sure.
Right, they're in our soul. By the time we get to the point to do that, then all you have to do is to change that from me to we.
Exactly.
If it's a company.
Yes.
Then how does that branch out?
Yes.
And it helps with decision making. It helps with everything because all those values, they operate on a spectrum, right? You're never at, +5, and you're never, well, you shouldn't be at negative, So typically you always want to be right around neutral.
Sure.
Like that's what it is. But there are going to be times that you're going to violate it. There's going to be times that you're going to exceed it, kind of fall in there. The problem, and this is where the core values can really become challenging to some, is let's say you violate one of the core values, but then there's a positive outcome. Like, oh shit, I know I did that, but man, I just picked up 20 more clients, because of all that, but man, I need to get back to neutral. Then you do it again. And then all of a sudden that -3 becomes your new neutral.
We've had lots. Look, we've had employees that hit really hard on hungry. They worked their asses off, and they were committed to bettering themselves. So like for us, ours are hungry, humble, committed, obviously socially smart, but hungry means a burning desire to win, right? And no matter what happens, we're going to have ebbs and flows. You get up and dust yourself off, and you get back to swinging, right? Humble, right? No job's too big, no job's too small. I'm going to take one for the team. Whatever the team, the brand, and the people that I'm working with need to succeed, I'll do it, right? Like, I'm in the back, Dan, I'm the old Italian guy out in the front lawn, sweeping off the front with the leaf blower, cleaning the bathrooms and shit. I don't care. I'll scrub shit off the toilets every day, all day, if that's what it takes to have a better facility, right? And then committed to excellence. For us, that means your own personal development, your education, social, emotional, and physical learning skills, right? So whatever that is, going from the trainer to the trainer who could now understand sales and soft skills, to the trainer who, like our big Mike, right, who went from just an intern to a full-time trainer, to our director of training, to our head of sales, to our GM, and like arguably like he's basically like having another owner in the business. He thinks and acts and operates as close as you're going to get to me and Dan at this point in the business, right? And he's through those processes continue to level up his skills and skill development, right? So when you have good set of core values, you have a starting point. You have a foundation to build upon, right? And when we've had employees who were maybe not so great in the humility side of things, and again, for grading people out, if you're looking at like a way to metric this, we kind of give people like a plus minus grade, right? And it's like if I'm grading people, super hungry, plus, right? Plus minus, I see sometimes when they're a little lazy, they're checking out early, whatever, plus minus, right? And it's just like, calling out sick, not doing their shit, not getting their work done. I'm constantly having to pat them in the ass constantly. That's a negative, right? And you're only going to get 1 or 2 of those on a grade out and you're done, right? So like if somebody's like got a humility issue, but they'll never cover a session for another person, right? They're leaving their teammates out to hang. They're supposed to open the gym gym at 6 and they're showing up at 6:15 and there's customers and clients waiting outside. And it was like, dude, it's your turn to open up, right? We take shifts on opening the gym sometimes and stuff like that. Those things start to erode the trust and culture. And if you have that in your core values, you kind of have those bylaws and you sit and talk about what it means to be a great employee in your business based on these things, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb when you start doing it in a different way, right? And again, I had great trainers. I had a guy who could sell their asses off. I had a guy who could train, he could sell. He was a very good coach. The humility stuff started to really be an issue, right? And it's like, all right, man, like at some point, you know, you're losing trust on your team here, and now I got to hear it every other week. Like this, and it just gets to a point where it's like, all right, man, you've outstayed your welcome here because you're not getting this part. We've had a bunch of conversations. Maybe they go on a performance improvement plan, you know, and it's hard to have a conversation about personality, being cool, you know, thinking about your team, right, with a grown-ass adult, right, whether it's a guy or a girl or somebody in your business. If I got to sit down with Dave Tate, a grown-ass man who's, you know, a fucking super strong human being, who's a, you know, alpha dude and himself, and I got to say, hey, man, like, you know, when you talk to somebody like that, like, do you realize that you're making them feel like absolute shit, and you're supposed to be a leader in this business, and you talk down to somebody who's like a junior coach, and it's like, that's not being a good leader. It's like, wow, I'll just bust a shot. I get it, man. Like, busting balls is cool once or twice. If it's every fucking Friday, it seems like it's a roast fest. Like, at some point that becomes a thing, right? And then the other team members see that, and maybe there's another coach that's like, all right, well, if he does it or she does it, and it's like, well, I can do it too. And it's like, and you just start to erode trust all the way down. So core values for me has really been one of the cornerstones of our business growth, because we've always had a good set of them. Dan and I have always hung our hats on a few of the things that we've done. We've always had a good mission, and the mission was always not about, like, the reason why I didn't name the business like Riggio Performance or some shit like that, or, you know, General Joe's Gym or some, you know, the average Joe's Gym, right? Yeah. Was because I wanted a brand. I wanted a brand that resonated with people, right? And I wanted a culture that resonated with people, and I didn't want the hero of the story to be Joe. I wanted the hero to be the kids, the parents, the community. Yeah. You know? Well,
from a more broad overview, though, those defined core values may, you know, inhibit somebody's ability to scale. Mm-hmm. Right. And the gym owner, because typically that's what I see the most of with that, is if they understand that beforehand, then it's just a wake up call to better your systems, increase your price, you know, maximize more out of the square foot that you have, instead of thinking that the answer is this growth. And if one of the core values is they want to have more personal freedom. Yes. You know, they want to be home more and all this other stuff. Well, you know, sometimes that may be a violation of that value that they don't really realize that they're violating until years later. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're doing 60 billable hours. They have no free time and they can't get their way out of all that.
That's like 90% of the gym owners. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they have to, you know, either define what those values are or dial it back a little bit to better maximize what's in there.
Getting clear on our core values also helped us getting clear on like our ideal clients. We'll call these avatars or whatever you want to call them, right? But I think like there was a saying I heard, I forget who said it. I mean, she's really popular, right? I think it was Cody Sanchez. She's like gotten huge over the last couple of years. She's the, you know, buy small business ladies, right? And she said, you know, I think I'm going to bastardize a little bit. It was stand for someone, not for everybody, right? And like you gotta know who your brand is for. And I think like in the beginning, a lot of small businesses, you know, we were guilty as charged. Is like, you know, I'll say yes to anybody who waved a $50 bill in front of my face, right? Because we needed the dough, right? And you know, sometimes it would literally be like, again, I remember like taking clients that were like absolutely horrible, like clients, horrible people. Like they were just not our people. They were not hungry, humble, committed, socially smart. In fact, a lot of them were socially inept, right? But we took their money because we were desperate, right? And it was like November. The football players weren't coming back till the second week of December, and we're on fucking fumes, you know. So it's like, you know, here comes somebody who's not a good fit for the brand, does not fit our culture and core values, but had $1,000 to pay for training. It was like, all right, we'll take that, right? And I totally get that, right? Don't blame me for being a money whore at that point in time, right? but if we had defined those things a little bit earlier, I think that like Elite FTS, it's not for everybody. Your brand, your model, your mantras, right? That might not be for everybody, right? Some people are going to resonate with CrossFit. Some are going to resonate with other different types of training and stuff like that. So, but you've always stood for someone, and not for everybody, right? And and over the years, if you just keep showing up in that niche and you keep showing up that niche and you provide a tremendous amount of value in that regard, you're going to find success and you're going to grow a little bit, right? And once we've really defined that, and we started to attract the right people, get the right athletes, get the right employees, right? Like I could say right now, like, you know, again, we've had some really good coaches come through the gym who, you know, some of them are with us still, some of them are not, right? But we have the best team that we've ever had. And in terms of working together as a team, you know, swinging for the fences to try and win every day, and everybody understanding the goals of the business, the economics of the business, and how their role fits into affecting those economics is better than it's ever been. And that culture is attracting people too, because look, we're in a high net worth area, right? Most people who have a lot of money don't want to hang around a bunch of bums. So you're either striving for greatness or you're not, right? And if the guy who's our avatar is a 50-year-old businessman who most of them make well over $500,000 a year, live in a $2 million house, right? They're bankers, lawyers, doctors, accountants, CEOs, finance guys, right? You know, do they want to be with some dipshit who's got no skills, who's not leveling up in life, who's not doing the thing, right? That, you know, are you the aspirational identity for these people? Now, I might not have, or most trainers might not make their type of money, but you need to be somebody that they look up to in some regard. And I think that's been something that really for us has been a big part of the business.
How have you gone about that? Because that's a tough nut to crack, because in the years that I worked as a trainer, you know, the same type of clientele.
Yeah.
In many regards, I'm looked at as like the servant. Yep. Like no different than the person that cleans their house or, you know, cuts a lawn or whatever it's going to be. And for some year, I was able to kind of break that. It probably didn't help that I was 308 pounds, bald goatee, and powerlifting, which kind of plays into all the stereotypes associated with it. But it gave me an advantage that at least I get their attention. And then just because of that, because you always wonder like who the big dude is. What I said after I got their attention is the defining factor, you know, with that. But that's still going to be something with that clientele that when they go to hire somebody, essentially it is somewhat a servant. You know, how do you get that to be that aspirational model that you're talking about?
So like, obviously, like, if, you know, a couple different things. One, great product, you know, great facility, professional business, I think is first and foremost, right? If you're running a pro shop where you have good customer service and customer service protocol, you have a consistent deliverable, right? Like the product is consistent, it's monitored, it's reviewed, it's improved upon, and people can see that. That resonates with a lot of people that you're trying hard, right? And I think that's a big part of it. I think successful people like to see the effort more than the outcome, right? And that's been my case. On the personal side and the physical side, you know, Dan and I have always thrown ourselves in the fire, right? And, you know, whether, you know, I've never been like, I've never competed at the level that you have in terms of powerlifting, but we've always done hard shit. I hike mountains, fishing, and I'm a big outdoors guy, hunting, fishing, you know, trips to Australia. We're hunting in Australia this year. And I'm doing the things that a lot of like men who are in my age group now, I'm 48, right? So a lot of the men that 45 to 65, they're holding on to that like dream of like, you know, when I get in shape or when I retire, I'm going to do this thing, right? And so I try to live that. We run races, do 5Ks, triathlons, all that type of stuff. You know, we did a lot of hardcore training, you know, whether it's going to West Side or going out to Jim Jones. We did the whole Jim Jones, like, certification journey back in the day, right? That shit was brutally hard, right? So I think, like, you know, throwing yourself on the fire is a big part of that. And then I really do think the biggest differentiator from us and the perception of the community as running a world-class business has been the business of strength, right? Once we started speaking about business, educating ourselves and educating other people, we had gym owners from all over the country and at this point all over the world coming into our gym to see kind of what we were doing. I think people are like, oh shit, these guys kind of got their shit together. Like, these guys kind of know what they're doing. And that's pretty cool that, like, there's somebody here from Canada, Mexico, the Netherlands, right? Germany, like wherever, all over Europe, right? We got dudes from Australia flew all the way in to New Jersey, you know, from Australia to come learn from us. I think that perception has created like people are like, wow, these guys are not only, you know, trying to help us and trying to help us every day, but they're trying to win in life and they're trying to win in business. And that's attractive to a lot of the people that were around. Now, there's going to be plenty of people. There's always a 10% of people that could give two shits,
right?
They
don't care. But the internship process too, we've been doing since the very beginning. So it was always been a culture of education. Yeah. And when there's a perception of learning, whether we were learning or eating sandwiches and lifting, whatever it was, people knew from the beginning and still to this day that, hey, to your point, like there's effort here and they're trying to get better, which differentiated us from maybe the Globo gym down the street. Not that they could have great trainers there, but that's more of a sterile vibe. That's never what we were. You know, it's always been education, people that were lifting themselves and trying to better themselves. And, you know, that internship and the seminars have definitely helped professionalize not only just Joe and myself, but you know, our director of training and our partner now, Adam Menner, Big Mike, you know, we've had a lot of our coaches participate that are now running internship autonomously of us. Yeah. They're participating in the seminar series. We've had trainers that have been with us for 1 year that are participating in the practical application of the internship, because when you could have other people on your team teaching components of it, it gives them ownership of like, hey, this is how we do things here. And from the client's perspective, we just ran an event in Arizona, our annual retreat for our Business of Strength crew. We had 9 people from our team go out, and people in the gym are like, what are you guys doing out in Arizona? Like, why is the whole team going? It's like, well, you know, we're teaching others how we do things here. And as soon as they hear that, perception is reality. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's definitely worked to our advantage.
And like Big Mike did a sales presentation. I mean, got a standing ovation. I mean, it was phenomenal, right? And it was just an insight, and a lot of what he talked about was like the core values. Hey, man, like, you know, sales isn't just some magical thing. It's smiling and dialing. It's pick up the phone. It's staying hungry. Like you just got told to fuck off like 8 times in a row. You pick up the phone and make the 9th call. You know what I mean? You just keep going, right? And you got to find solutions and help people every day. And you got to make shit from nothing, right? Sales is a job where you got to create, you know, magic out of thin air in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you get leads, and my job is to provide the leads and provide the opportunities. But you got to do shit with that. You got to do something, and that arguably is a little bit of a harder process because I got to get them in the gym. And obviously, in the event, in the gym business, the critical event is actually getting them to show up, mm-hmm. right? It's great, you know. And again, I'm not saying it's any easier, but like having a product sale, it's very different. If you want to buy a bottle of water, I'm fucking thirsty. I'm gonna mm-hmm. go out and buy a bottle of water. Training is like, hey man, like, you know, you're 50 pounds overweight, your cholesterol's really high. You got arthritis popping up. You're pre-diabetic. We got to get this thing going. When can you train? Well, really only mornings. All right, man. Like I got a 6 a.m. class. We got to go 3 days a week, 6 a.m. You know, no more booze during the week. We got to cut out that bagel in the morning every goddamn day. You can't have a bagel and cream cheese for breakfast 5 fucking days a week. You know, you got to start eating some grilled chicken and grilled meats and stuff. It's like, oh, you know, it's like you got to look in the mirror. There's a whole lot of self-reflection that comes with getting in shape.
People
right?
don't want to do that shit.
It's social, emotional habit change. That is fitness, right? Where like, you know, buying a sweet new pair of Jordans is just buying a sweet new pair of Jordans, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's a little bit of a different thing there, and that's again, that's what makes the gym industry. I think it's what makes it awesome, and it's what makes it hard, right? The hard part is that you have to get people to change their entire lifestyle, their habits, and their mindset towards fitness. And on the other side of that, when you do that, it creates such magic, because I've literally played a part in helping, you know, thousands of young athletes, someone like Dan, who's now my longtime business partner, and thousands of adults change their lives forever, right? And families have come to us. This saved my marriage. This gave us a connection with our kids that we never had. You know, now when we're going on vacation, we're booking out like hikes and kayaking and things that we never did before, because we just, I don't know, it never even dawned on us that we could do those things. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow. So people's training changes capability, right? And that's like, especially now that we're getting older, Dave, right? That's kind of like my main focal point of a lot of our marketing is like, hey, like, you know, being ripped with abs is kind of cool, but being able to play golf, if that's your thing, you know, till you're 75, that's probably pretty cool too. That's probably way cooler, right? And I think a lot of people, they have this picture in their head, like, I'll get fit when I retire. I'll do that next year. I'll do this. Yeah. And they kick the can down the road. And it's like, I'll wait till the golden years. Like, oh, my wife's retiring next year. I'll have more time to do all this shit. And I'm like, A lot of times you get to 60, 65 and the golden years come and all of a sudden, but your body has failed you at that point, right? And now the things that you like do, you can't even fucking do anymore. So it's like, so.
They don't have the physical capability.
Right.
So they're striving for that, which is the interesting thing.
I'm a very active human. I like the outdoors. I'm a big outdoors. I like to fish, hike, bike, hunt, stuff like that, right? The worst thing that could happen to me is literally I can't do those things anymore. Because like in my head, I got a 7-year-old, so I'm not old, but I'm a little bit of an older dad, right? So my son's only 7, right? Like shit, that means that if I want to see him graduate high school and college, maybe get married, have a family, I gotta live till I'm 80. And like, I'll be goddamned if I'm still alive, then I'm not gonna be able to like push my grandkids around in a stroller and shit because I'm in a wheelchair, I'm diabetic, or I'm grotesquely overweight and shit like that. So I think like that's the amazement of the gym industry, because it truly is, you're helping save people's lives every day. And I think if you think about that and you put that as part of your mission and you make the gym big, Dan and I, you asked before, like, how have we created this perception of wealth in a sense, and of, well, I call that social emotional wealth, not even physical wealth. How do I get those wealthy people to say that, damn, this is the place I want to be? Tons of community stuff. We give back in the community, cancer foundations. We've done a cancer fundraiser for the last 16 years. We donate tons of money to kids programs, money and time, right? So, I'm coaching little kids. We're doing a project right now for the last 2 years, coaching a firehouse, helped a bunch of dudes change their lives, get in shape. These are like local, like hometown heroes. These are volunteer firemen. They get paid for this shit. In New Jersey or anywhere now, I think they have to go to full fire school. So it's not like a part-time fire school anymore. You got to become a real fireman for $0. And some of these guys are doctors. One guy's got a huge tech company. Like, they don't have to do this shit. They're doing it because they want to give back to their community. So for us to give back to them is a notch. So when people see us, they're like, you guys are always doing great shit in the community. If I got $10 and I can give 2 or 3 back to the community for every $10 we make, right? I think it comes back to us 100x.
How have you navigated the lulls? Right, because with scaling becomes risk, and with the risk, most of the time there's failure. That kind of bleeds with that risk. Yeah. So there's the ups, but then there's the downs. So how do you navigate the downtowns?
I'll let Dan answer the second part, because he's done a phenomenal job in the last few years with the finances. So at first, it was we just need more gasoline. We need more marketing and sales, right? Because that's an easy fix. And again, for a lot of the gym owners who are listening, maybe, get your marketing and your sales processes dialed in. Prices, capacity, messaging, right? And a good sales process, right? Whatever that looks like in your business, whether it's a free class, free trial, front-end offers. For us, it's always a custom assessment, right? So we get people into a customized assessment. We build the value and the plan in that assessment, right? By showing them our expertise in customization. And then we sell them on a front-end offer, a fast action offer right there on the spot, right? So it doesn't matter what they come in for, we usually offer them something right there on the spot during the assessment. So you got to have a good sales process, right? And that'll take most gyms and most businesses, well into the 500K mark, right? And if you just get really good you got a good product, you're a decent human being that gives a shit and actually shows up for your clients on a daily basis, and you got decent marketing and sales, you can, I would bet that I could get any gym to $500,000. To go beyond that, to have a legacy business that's going to stick around for 20, 30 years, right? And maybe you're going to pass off or sell or whatever it is, or you can expand like we're doing and open up 5, 10 more gyms or whatever the business is, whatever we decide. Then you have to start to get really good at the financial acuity. And at this point, like, we have good marketing and sales, and that's the gross margin, right? Mm-hmm. Marketing and sales is gross margin. Financial acuity is profit and what you get to take home. Yeah. And Dan could talk a little bit on that and about what he's done in the last few years to really transform our vision of how we run the business internally. And payroll was always one of the biggest lulls. Like, how do we navigate the lulls? Don't overpay people, right? Don't get caught up, don't have a good plan for paying people. We just, like I said, we just randomly threw shit out. Our payroll had gone through the roof at one point, and Dan and I had like flatlined, and we're looking at each other like, fuck, man, we ain't making no money. We're like, the business is making way more money, and we haven't taken another penny.
I mean, it's important to, business can be hard, and lulls always suck.
Oh yeah.
You know, like lull. I think anybody would be. You know, I appreciate the vote of confidence from Joe on the financial acuity, but like, just because you know what you're looking at doesn't mean it's like easy to digest. You know, like it's you can be more prepared for it, and I think that's all we've done is to be more prepared for a lull. Where in years past, we've you can and debt. Like bad debt, credit card debt, it doesn't accrue overnight. Like it accrues over years, and then you find yourself in a shit position. It's not allowing yourself to get there by following a monthly budget. And I mean, we put a budget together with, we have a CFO that helps us. Mike Waldron helps put our budget together. Hey, this is where you guys are trying to go. This is what you have to aim to do each month. And we review it every month. So there's accountability there, just like any coach. And at the end of the year, the accountant dishes it out to say, hey, this is what this year did. And it's comparing and contrasting to previous years, and then you adjust the budget based on where you're trying to go. Hey, there's an allotment of money. We're trying to open another gym. Where are we pulling that money from? What considerations do we need to make on the budget to make sure we don't run out of money? And it's just having that, it's just a reality that different seasons. Dave, you talked about it a lot, I think, with your own personal training and focus. It's blast or dust. In business, like, and I'm sure you have insulation at Elite, like, it can't be all or nothing, all right? Like, it can't be. You have to be, it's steady Eddie for long periods of time. And that's really what I've tried to instill in our leadership team. It's like, hey, what we measure is going to get improved upon, and we're not hitting home runs in this business. We're not selling tech. We don't have the ability to go out and sell a humongous government equipment job. Like we're selling gym memberships. So if we're going to grow our growth, I'd rather see long sustained growth, very similar to Lita. Like you watch somebody that I'd rather have the lifter that's going to show up 3 times a week and eat decently than the lifter that's going to show up 6 days a week and go all out for 12 weeks and I don't see them for 6 months. I'd rather the slow and steady approach over long periods of time. And that's really, in a nutshell, what we've done with our finances as it pertains to the business. Slow and low, long periods of time, make sure that we're not carrying bad debts and we're following a budget, and the budget gets measured. I measure, something that I'll do if somebody's listened to this, like, well, where do I even start? Well, you have in this day and age, we were joking about it before we came in here onto the set. It's like, when we started, we didn't have I didn't have an Instagram account for years. We didn't do there were no distractions. There was no distractions. Like, how many likes did I get? How many followers do I have? And that habit, never really caught on for us. Like, obviously, you want more viewership. And I'm not saying I'm sitting here and saying like, oh, I don't want more people to follow our stuff. Of course I do. But I start every day, still to this day, wake up, check the money. Money in, money out. That's the first thing. When I sit at my desk, I know one of the primary objectives for me and our company is our financial health. So if I know that, it's like weighing in every day. If you know you're overweight, like when if I'm trying to lose weight, which I am right now, it's like I get on the scale every day. If all I do is get on the scale every day, usually I tend to lose weight. If I know we need to be doing this amount of money per day in for each one of our businesses, well, the first thing I do is check the point of sale from yesterday and what hit the account today, match it up, move forward. And if it's trending that it's not happening, then you go down to marketing and say, hey, what the fuck, man? And you go to the salespeople like, hey, and you ask curious questions. I'm not, I might say that to him, but you'll ask curious questions. Hey, where are we at with X, and what support do you need to accomplish the goal? Yeah. The money, as you know, in business, it's like you could have the best values and mission statements and all this other stuff. You run out of money, there's no business left.
Cash is king.
You're done.
I want to give a couple tactics too, if I can, Dave. Like, it's again, like just like straight tactics. If you wanna avoid the lulls, the first thing is, like Dan's saying, is awareness. You got to know where the lulls are. So once we started tracking data, membership data, attendance data, right? You know, when we signed up, which months we signed up the most memberships, which months were the lightest, where we had the greatest attrition, where we didn't, where people took the most winter vacation, took the most vacations and shit, right? And like in the Northeast, right now we're in New Jersey, kind of like here, right? In the winter, it's fucking freezing. It's terrible, right? We have spring break and winter break in February. Our entire gym, they all got money. They go away. Everybody's at the Atlantis down in the Bahamas for a week and a half, right? Tons of vacations. Summer, half our population has beach homes or rents beach homes, right? Down the Jersey Shore. So, you know, August is a heavy attrition month. Like July and August can be heavy on the attrition. So, you know, at first it was always like, you know, we're just churning and burning, cracking necks and cashing checks, as my guy Lance likes to say, right? But then it started like, hey, we know we're going to start to tail off in July and we're going to hit a real low in August. So you got to bump it up in May and June. The attrition that happens in August, or the oh fuck moment when we run out of cash in September, it's too late. That started in May, right? And it's kind of like a fashion company. Like right now, they're on the spring fashion, right? Why? Because they got to get ahead of that shit, right? So the same thing in your business. So you got to get ahead of stuff. You have to have a global awareness of the lulls on membership sales and attrition as a whole in the company. And that, you know, you're going to need a year or so of data. But again, as a new gym owner, if you were coming in, you start tracking this shit from day one, right?
Yeah. I mean, so there's a seasonality to it.
Yeah, yeah. All gyms go through seasonalities, and they're a little bit different in every market, but the majority of gyms are slower in the summertime, right? And then for most people, obviously, the end of December, right around the holidays, it's gonna be a slow down. It usually picks up right up in January again, and then February by us has been characteristically one of our worst months, right? Just because for us, dead of winter, freezing cold. Again, getting that 50-year-old dad who's overweight to commit to coming to the gym at 6 a.m. in the dead of winter doesn't sound too appealing. You know, it's like I'll wait till April when it warms up a little bit. You know,
it's also a mindset too.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit, August would come around, we'd be crushing training sessions. August would come around, and I was hey, I'm blown. I'm not doing shit in August. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be here. I'm going to go through the motions, but I'm going through the motions.
Yeah.
So because nobody's around to buy training memberships. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, that is total bullshit. So you have to know that, like, okay, well, in August last year, we did X. Well, let's just make sure we can move the barometer just a little bit, move the needle a little bit to do Y this year. So we knew, you know, let's just take an arbitrary number. Last year we did $100,000 in August. This year the goal's 105. And if you play that competition with yourselves, and listen, our sales team in their hearts, they're all meatheads. They like to compete. This is what we did last year. This is the expectation this year. I understand people are going to have vacations and whatnot, but if Joe's out, then Steph, you got to step up, and you know, then the next week when you're out, Joe's got to step up. But we're all in this to understand doing the same is not acceptable, right?
Yeah, well, that ends up being a balance between a growth mindset and a paranoid mindset.
Correct.
Because say it's, you know, 100 compared to 90 last year, but it ends up being 80. Right. And then that happens for, say, a whole quarter.
Yeah.
Well, then you can't be in this growth mindset. You need to be in this, the paranoid needs to create a survival mindset.
Yes.
Like whatever's going on, you know, we need to be able to weather and survive, you know, for when that pop. And meanwhile, you're trying to figure out why this is happening, because sometimes the correction won't be as simple as having a conversation with one sales rep.
Yeah.
You know, it can be something else kind of going on with that, as to where we go back to cash is king, you know, because if there is cash to be able to ride, you know, that time period. Or, you know, one big thing I've seen with gym owners that blows my fucking mind, by the way, is they don't have a credit line.
Yes.
You know, and they'll rely on a credit card. Like, even if you just get $1,000 credit line, get the fucking credit line and grow it over a period of time.
Yes.
And then don't use it to buy new power racks and shit. That's the way I see it.
No, that's your security.
It's a security. Now, there are a lot of companies, you know, outside of this realm that run on that. I don't know if I have the risk tolerance to be able to do that, because when that's
like
out,
every construction company.
Yeah. I mean, when that's out, you're out. You know, but on the way that most people run their businesses now, without anything, when they're out, or they're going to go try to bring in a partner and then end up with the shitty end of a deal.
Yeah.
because the partner coming into something that's in the red.
It's like a knee-jerk reaction too. I desperately need money, so I'll give 30%, 40%, 50% of the company to this guy for money. And then it's maybe like, again, and we've had offers, like we went to a private venture company when we were thinking about expanding, and they were going to throw money at us. And I said, well, what are you going to do other than give us money? They're like, nothing. I'm going to wait for my check. And I was like, all right, well, that's not, I'm going to give this person X amount of percentage. And yeah, the money sounds great, but then they're going to do zero in the business. And that's a lot of gym owners do that. Like they have like a silent investor or somebody gives in, and then, you know, I hate to use the term, but you're a fucking indentured servant at that point. Now you owe somebody. And I always hate that. Like we honestly, like when we did everything, we owned everything, we paid for everything, we never had any debt in the business until we got to $1 million business. And then obviously lines of credit and stuff like that, you got to start really, you know, thinking about long and hard. Like, all right, like now our monthly nut is, you know, just to stay afloat is, you know, close to $100,000 a month. It's like, all right, we probably need a line of credit here because like you have 2 or 3 bad months in a row and you're in a real shithole, right? And then, you know, I don't want to have to go to my wife and be like, hey, we're going to take a mortgage on the home, or we're going to take a home equity line so I can pay for gym shit. Like that's not happening at this point, right? So, you know, and I think another big issue to avoid the lulls is to really professionalize your marketing, right? And awareness precedes, you know, action, and the action in avoiding lulls is having a really well defined and robust marketing plan. So it's not just social media. It's not just, you know, asking for referrals or waiting for referrals. Like you mentioned referrals earlier on. When I speak to a lot of gym owners, I say, what's the number one way in which you get new clients? And the majority of them will say referrals, right? And I said, all right, so how many referrals are you going to get next month? Well, I don't know. You know, I said, well, how do you metric that then? Well, I don't metric it. I was like, well, all right, well, what's your referral goal for the year? I don't really have one. I was like, well, so you're telling me that your number one strategy for getting new clients is waiting for Dan to go home and say, you know what? I'm going to take a day off of work today because I got to make fucking Joe some money today, right? And I'm going to call all my friends and see if I can coerce them to go to Joe's gym and make him money today when I got my own kids, my own business, my own shit to worry about, right? So that's not happening. So again, having a marketing plan is a global messaging plan. It's a 12-month messaging plan. Every month there's different initiatives. There's maybe it's seasonality, it's whatever, right? Whatever you're going to run, summer slim down, New Year, new you, February's for friends. You're going to have a couple key initiatives in there and tactics that you're going to use. You got to decide which platforms you're going to specialize in. Maybe somebody is really creative and they like doing videos and social media education, stuff like that. I think, like Dan said, people dive too far down to that. They get, instead of providing value, they're more worried about like the dopamine hit that it gives to them by getting people to like it. And like, I have a gym owner right now in our group who I'm trying to convince to use the social media company that we work with because he spends about 10 hours a week doing his social media. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? 10 hours a week? I mean, that's an insane amount of time. And he's like, yeah, you know, but I do every video. I'm cutting the video. I was like, bro, you're a trainer, meathead. You are not a videographer or an editor. Like that's an easy hire, right? And then that offload is like 10 hours back. You got 10 more hours to sell and focus on delivering amazing training to the clients. You're probably going to make more money. So marketing plan, you know, we start with a brand script. What's the messaging and the who, the where, the what, and the why of your brand? Global marketing calendar. What are we doing every month? Every month there's got to be something. Don't tell me I don't know. That doesn't fucking count. That doesn't drive business. Every month here at Elite, we got something we're running with, right? Whatever it is, right? Bands. I saw recently there's been sale on bands. You know, Halloween. Spooktacular deal, like shit like that. Whatever it is. Black Friday's coming, right? We're jumping on the Black Friday train real soon, right? That's a lot of the gyms too. Whatever they're gonna be. Don't tell me I don't want to be salesy. All right, fuck off then. You don't want to make money? Like you don't have to be a piece of shit, right? And like I'm not selling people nothing they don't want or need. But the first step in the gym game, in the private sector gym game, is I have to get somebody to say, that sounds pretty good. Maybe I will get off my fat ass and do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you got to give them some type of carrot, whether that's, you know, half off your first month, a New Year's discount. You know, we're running something for Black Friday that's been a smash hit for us. It's a 5 for 25 deal. It's 5 custom training sessions for $25, right? We all in between the gyms last year, we sold about 102 programs of that, right? So it was like 102, 103, right? So you have to have tactics, and then you have to have like anchored programs like our 6-week transformation. And then as you professionalize, me and Dan have always been good at the email side of things. We have a huge email list, and Dan and I have written emails every week for 15 years, right? So our email list is really big. Maybe you don't have that, so you're doing social media, digital ads, combination of email, joint ventures in the community, partnering up with the local chiropractor, orthopedic, physical therapy groups, whatever it might be. How can we help each other grow our populace, right? Workshops together, right? Providing value. Like if you're a local gym and you're kind of just getting going, or you've been going for a while and you're the gym guy, maybe one of your clients is like an orthopedic in town, or a physical therapist who's pretty prominent, right? So partnering up with them immediately improves your stature in the community, because now, Dr. So-and-so partnered up with Varsity House to do this, arm care clinic for throwers. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's neat. I can't believe he would do that. You know what I mean? So it increases your stature and expertise, right? And people start to look at you as a professional in that realm, because we know that the gym, most of the time, they think it's like a used car shop. You come in and we could wheel and deal and make a deal. And, it's...
So when you're working with these gym owners, and I'm going to use the example that you said, the one guy putting 10 hours in Instagram, how do you work with them on determining what the ROI is, and actually more importantly what the CAC is, because there's a difference between the ROI and the ROI based upon the profit that actually creates.
Sure.
And there's a huge gap of people that don't understand the difference between that, but they don't even understand the ROI in the first place. So if it's 10 hours per week, do they know how many clients that actually brings in, or are they just going off the Instagram analytics and saying, I'm getting more followers and I'm getting more engagement?
Most people, it's going to be the latter. So, and again, organic social media, as you know, does have limited range. If you're not attaching specific codes, opt-ins, and like tracking pixels to, or your organic social media and or YouTube videos and things like that, it's hard to track that stuff. And it's a little bit more difficult on the service side, human side, than it is to track a product. So you can put product codes in your social media and track that from start to finish, right? In the gym game, that's not common. It's also not cheap in a sense when you start to get that digital tech built up. So for the most people, I look at it as organic social media as an ancillary necessity that has very little intrinsic value in a brick and mortar gym to driving tons of business. Social media ads work well and are 100% metricable, and you could see exactly how much you're spending, to acquire a client, and how many of those clients you're converting. So again, let's just say we run a specific ad and we get 150 leads from the ads. I know exactly where they opted in, on what platforms and where, how many we converted, how long they stayed, what they converted to, whether they refer or not down the road, and you can track that all the way through.
What we paid,
exactly, what the cost of acquire, everything, right? So top, and you get that CAC all the way at the bottom, which is like, all right, after full acquisition and onboarding, this is the dollar value that we're getting out of that, right? Most gyms aren't doing that. So, I think the biggest hesitation is people think that they're just going to pump out all this content and they're going to get lucky. And they're going to be the next, again, just some names that are big on the social media, like the Joe D's, the Eric Cressys and stuff like that. Well, those guys are who they are because of a reason. Like they had a rare combination of timing. They got in when it was early and young. They have dynamic personalities themselves, right? They do run great businesses and they are great trainers, right? But the likelihood that the average Joe Schmo, from North Jersey or South or anywhere is just going to be the next like Paul Quinn, like just a phenom that like the world is attracted to, right? They're going to become, a next to Huberman who just explodes. He's got millions of followers. It's probably pretty small, right? So you can pay for digital ads. Digital ads are 100% metricable. Doing a joint venture with another company is 100% metricable, right? We do a joint venture with Elite. I'm going to give you a discount code for your community. You're going to give me a code for mine. You see, hey, Varsity House sent out 4 emails for, our products, and we got 50 people to opt in, and we sold 25 of them. And the same thing, hey, Dave sent out the podcast or whatever it is, and I could see, hey, from that we got 20 people to opt into a free business strategy call, and out of those we converted 5 of them to our consulting company, right? So that's in a sense where I look at it. Organic social media should be for a brick and mortar gym, should be a sounding board of smiley, happy people having fun in your business, solving the problems that you have, social proof, right? You want to see men, women, and children like winning and doing the thing. And again, it should just showcase like a culture of fun. And I hate to use the term inclusiveness, but like whatever that is, whatever your avatar is, whoever that is, like most people, the trend of it is I see an ad, you know, New Year, New You, Black Friday deal. People are going to go check out your social media. Most people are not just going to buy a gym membership sight unseen. They're going to check out your website. They might check out your social media. And they're, you know, that 50-year-old mom, that 50-year-old dad is kind of putting the puzzle pieces together. Does the message, you know, price sound good? 50% off my membership sounds like a good deal. Do I see? Oh, I do see them. I see a bunch of like, you know, Varsity House. I don't know. Do they only work with athletes? Let me see what they got. I look at. Oh, I see a bunch of moms and dads. That guy looks just like me. Oh shit, I'm in better shape than him. You know what I mean? If I could do it, if he could do it, you know. So, social media is a sounding board. It's very hard to metric in the brick and mortar game.
Well, I think you touched on something there that was important though, because if it is a gym, right, and people are or a gym, personal training gym, whatever it's going to be. Having the post on Instagram or wherever your demographic exists, which is a whole different conversation, is before they're going to hire you, they're probably going to search your page and they're going to look through your content, right? So the ones that have really strong evergreen content are going to do better than the people that are all caught up in what's the latest debate or latest fad that I can argue and bitch about, because that's not, and this is unquantifiable, by the way, because you don't know. I mean, we know they're doing it, but you can't track that they're doing it. They hear you on this podcast, they're going to go to the Instagram, they're going to start scrolling through, looking at stuff. And if you go there with a blind eye and test it yourself, does that show what you do? You know, when they kind of scan through there. To regress back, though, a little bit, would you say that these business owners should determine what their lifetime value is for a customer before even embarking on any of this paid stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I find most don't. Because if I ask them, you know, what's your lifetime value, I get this blank fucking stare.
And it's not hard to find.
I know.
Yeah, it's not hard to find. And we use Mike Woldron, our CFO. He's a great guy. He's heavily involved in the fitness side of things. As a CFO, as a remote CFO, he works with a lot of gyms and some really big names too, right? That have many more facilities than we do and such. So he's very smart on the metrics and the conversion rates and all the things and the economics of the gym business. And his calculation is basically, you know, we call it the death calculation, but we only calculate attrition and like client value on the people who leave, not the people who stay. So this gives you like the worst case scenario, because I don't want the best. I don't want this pie in the sky dream of like, well, I'll use his name, and if he hears, I will post this out. And Kenny P, if you hear this, man, you're the man.
He's gonna hear this.
We're going to get pizza on Monday, right? Kenny's the man. Kenny. I started training Kenny's son before I ever had a gym. I was training him at tennis clubs and stuff like that. His whole family has trained with us, and him and his wife still train with us. So he's been with us for about 20 years, right? Great guy. Kenny's not the norm. Kenny's not who I'm worried about. Kenny's been paying his membership, you know, happily for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So in the last, let's say, calendar year 2 or 3, out of all the people who've left, what did they pay? How long did they stay? And then you calculate those numbers, and that gives you a real like LTV, because the truth of the gym game is that most people will leave.
Listen, I mean, this is real time, because we're doing a gift for people that have been with us for 10 years plus. We have nearly 600 clients across 3 facilities. We've had 36 people that are still currently paying us money that have been with us for 10 years or more. 36 of nearly 600.
Right.
So somebody hearing this, it's like, I was the person that would say, oh, well, like, Dave's never going to leave. Well, sometimes, you know, Dave might move. Like, you know, something might happen. You might still be We are still friendly with plenty of people that have moved on. But when you're in business for long enough, people are going to move on for a variety of reasons. And getting that LTV, people hear like acronyms and things like that. Like, what the hell is that? It's very simple to find this number. So we're, you know, what is it, November 8th today? You know, you could go from September 1st and you just get all the people that have left. So let's say you had 2 people that left in September, and you know, 1 stayed for 6 months, 1 stayed for 3 months. So your LTV of the people that left in September is 4.5 months. So just multiply that by what they paid. That's your LTV of September. Do the same for October. We'll do the same for November. If you're in a gym game, that's how you find your LTV, and it's real time. You can do it quarterly, and it's not that hard, and it is a statistic and a metric that you absolutely need to know, because then you can understand how much money and or time, when you guys are talking about a specific gym owner spending 10 hours a week, it's not that he's not getting customers with those 10 hours a week, but those 10 hours a week are not being applied on other aspects of that particular person's business that would make him more money.
Yeah, it's even easier now, because I'm sure every gym out there, or very close to everyone, is using some type of software metric to be able to help with their accounting. They're using something, QuickBooks, MindBody, there's something.
Yeah,
right?
MindBody's probably
whatever it's going to be. And I don't know it very well, but I'm pretty sure you can export a database.
Sure.
We got large language models now. You export that database, you pull it into a GPT, that's a data analytics tool, and you just simply ask, what's the lifetime value? Then you can drill it down, like take out the top 10%. Take out the bottom 10%, the people that, clean it up a little bit, because sometimes you can have these giant outliers, like a client that's been with you for 30 years, right? Or you can have, the people that stay for a day and leave, right? Those are different problems, but you can pull those. This is just basic fucking prompting anymore.
Yes.
I mean, that used to.
It's not like you got to sit there and have like a true financial economics degree to get these numbers.
Yeah. And even if it's off to a certain degree, it's close enough, to be able to kind of let you know where it is. So I used to give a little bit of leeway, on excuses. Okay, well, they don't know. Maybe it's a pain in the ass to kind of pull all the data out to be able to filter it. I've gone, your way is a very simple way, as well, but they may not know that, to where this now is like you just download a fucking database.
Well, at our size business now, right, and especially because we're trying to really grow, right, and the goal is to expand, marketing is fastly becoming one of our largest expenses, right, as the need for more social media ads increases, ad spend increases, right? And here's something that we haven't touched on yet. We talked about attrition, right? But as a general rule, back in the day, even as early as like 4 or 5 years ago, right, or 3 years ago, right around the pandemic, so 2019, if you would have said to me, like, what's ideal for attrition, I would say sub 5%, like 3 to 5% would be like ideal for a gym. That means for every 100 clients, you're losing 3 to 5 people a month, right? Now, from a marketing perspective, if you got a small shop, personal training gym, semi-private, whatever, personal, you got 100 clients, and you're running good attrition at 5%, you're losing 5 people a month. The energy required for marketing and sales to replace those 5 people is not that big of a deal. Like I said, most owner-operators could do that themselves. Make 10 phone calls a day, run a reactivation list, who's not in the gym anymore, run a couple referral campaigns specifically. Like we're big on building referrals into the actionable marketing plan, so they're not just this haphazard waiting, like we said, waiting for Dave to go home and make Joe money type deal, right? We're going to put buddy weeks, things like that in there. We're going to have referral campaigns in there, right? But now attrition is generally around 7%, right? So it's gone up a little bit, right? As a whole, whether it's the pandemic, people's scarcity with money. In the last 6 months, all my gym buddies are, on and on about the election, causing some money scarcity and so forth like that. Whatever it is, nationally, it's definitely gone up.
Well, we can't control it.
Right. You can't control it. So that's
the main thing as business owners, that would be a law that you would look into.
Correct.
Yeah.
But like, here's the big scale that people don't realize. Because we talked about it earlier. Every gym was like, I want to go bigger. I want to go bigger. I want to go bigger, right? So I go for 100. What's the goal? Go to 200, right? I got to double the size. I got to get a bigger gym. What do you got now? I got 1,800 square feet. What do you want to go? I'm going to 5,000. It's like, all right, that's a fucking big jump, right? And it's like, what are you going to go? What do you need member-wise? How many do you have now? 100. I think I can fit 250 in that place. It's like, all right. So you realize, though, that when you go from 100 to 250, that 7 per people a month is now 17, 18 a month, right? And I said, and now that takes a lot more fucking energy, right? Now you need a full-time sales and marketing person. It's literally selling and marketing and doing this because you're not closing it to, so if you want to grow the business, let's say, I want to go from 200 members to 250, right? I got a plus 50 goal, but you have to account the attrition. Yeah. So again, I got 200 members, that's 14 people a month, right? I need 14 a month is 100 and what's that number? That's 14 plus 28, 140 plus 28, 168 people plus the 50. So it's really, I got to add 225 people this year. Most gym owners don't realize that. And it's like, oh shit. As the business grows, the attrition monster gets huge.
You're not referring your way through that kind of growth. You're not doing that.
No, that would mean you would have to be actioning like multiple referrals a day, right? And like, again, we have 600 members, right? Again, it's 7%, 6 times 7. I'm losing 40 plus people a month in the business. June, here's an example, right? June, we had our best sales month ever as a company, right? We sold 57 memberships in our headquarters, right? Testament to Mike and the sales team. They did an amazing job. Again, knowing that August was going to get a kick in the dick, right? We had a bunch of initiatives going in June that worked really well, and Mike and the team killed it. We started getting our summer pauses and attrition a little early. Plus, we lost a lot of athletes, right? Spring season was over. Athletes are going away, right? Their attrition is in the 20, 30% or more sometimes, right? We had one quarter was 80, right? So plus, 57 total memberships sold, 42 people on the attrition list, right? You got a plus, 15 month, all that fucking work for a month. Our average we're trying to hit is like 16 memberships a month anyway. So it's like all that work, an incredible sales month, all that energy to come out basically the same as any other decent month. Yeah. Right. And it's like, fuck, and it's almost, it could be defeating, right? So for those, and then for the sales team to like get back on the horse and have to do it again in July and August when we know we're going to have trouble in July and August. It's like, you got to keep, you got to know your shit at that point.
It's a game.
It's a game.
It's a game. And, to those gym owners that you're talking about and you've been around for 2 decades, so you've kind of seen this kind of come and go. When you're in this down market, even though there's, for whatever reasons, circumstances we can't control, you can still, fight your best. But when those down markets come, a lot of your competitors go away.
Sure they do.
Because they go out of business. Sure.
We've seen so many.
So that's, okay, down market. This is for real, a down market. It's more than a quarter. For some industries, yes. For some industries, no. It's never always the same. Survival mode, right? Just chill. Let everybody else die. And then when they're dead, you're in a position to pop back up.
We've won, I think, just like lifting. We use a lot of lifting analogies and food analogies, restaurant analogies, right? Food and lifting, right? But you could see the character of a lifter the first time they fail out of the meet or the first time they get injured, right? And they're fucking done. They quit. They're done, right? Or a kid gets hit. First time a kid gets absolutely like fucking smeared in football and they quit, right? All right, that's a character thing. In business, it's no different, right? I mean, Dan and I could rattle off the list of some big name people who open gyms in our area who are no longer in business, and most of them are no longer in the industry because the second shit hit the fan, it got hard, and they had to really fight and scrape, look in the mirror every day, maybe go crawling home to their wives. I mean, Dan and I have had to have fucking hard conversations with our families, like, yo, shit's going to be tight the next. Pandemic, me and my wife bought a house Friday the 13th. Maybe that was the moment, right? Yeah. We closed on the house, March 13th. Monday the 16th, right? They closed the gym down. I'm taking pictures on Friday out in front of our new home, which we just spent a bunch of money on, obviously, right? And I come home on Monday like, yo, they just told me to shut down the gym. She's like, "We're gonna be all right." I'm like, well, "We're gonna fight," you know what I mean? And like, we're fighters. Like, I don't know. Next day, I was in the gym, 3 hours of virtual Joe every day for 6 months. Dan wound up having his son prematurely during that time, so he was like, "Dude, like, I'm so sorry, but I got to be in the NICU and I got to exit the building." I was like, "Dude, you do your shit. You take care of your family. We'll figure it out. Like, we're going to war." And Mike, Sean at the time, Simone, there was a few people that were with us at the time, and we showed up every day at the gym. We can give shit about COVID. I had all the windows tinted out, it's over now, so I could tell these stories.
Yeah.
I had all the windows tinted out, like mirror tinted. I had spies out in the parking lot. I was like, you see a fucking inspector come, you lock the door. We locked the doors.
Yeah.
I called all the clients. We speak the shit out of it, and it's like, yo, it's either that or a great community centers going out of business, and two dudes that have literally poured their lives into this I'm gonna wind up like selling insurance or some shit, you know.
Well, that's the callous, you know, that's the result of the callous that you build up through all the years of all the other adversity you had beforehand. So using the example of, you know, no different than training, I started laughing when you said that, because the first thing that came to my mind was, you can watch a competitive lifter on a platform and they pull a hamstring for the first time. They're laying on the ground, they're like rolling around. You know, maybe the two of their training partners have to carry them off, or whatever it's going to be.
Academy Award.
Yeah, then that same person 20 years later tears a bicep, you know, pulling a deadlift, and they're like, oh, fuck, I think I tore my bicep.
Just keeps pulling,
You know, it's not even a big deal. It's like, I think I tore my bicep, you know, but that's the callous, you know, of all the little adversity that you have that enables you to be able to take in that bigger one. We're avoiding the littler ones all the time, you know, as a way to avoid building the callus to be able to handle the really big shit, because big shit will happen if you plan on being in business for over a decade.
100%.
You know, really big shit.
Of course.
You know, that you have to learn how to have faith that it's going to work out, you know, and not overreact. But going back, there were many times younger, you know, in my business career where there's a lot of overreaction to things that I would look back on now and be like, that was not a problem. It really was not a problem. But at that time, that was the biggest problem I ever had to deal with, you know, as a business owner. So when you're working with these businesses as mentors to be able to help them, what do you see as some of the most common mistakes that they're making?
I mean, common mistakes are overspending, obviously, right? And again, I don't want to downplay the product. Product's super important. But if you focus all of your education on the X's and O's and you don't learn how to run a business, you're not running a business, right? The second you sign a lease, you decide, like, I'm going to be Joe Schmo gym owner. You're a business person first, right? And then second, coach. Like, and you could be the greatest coach. You could be the next Cressy, Charles Parker, whatever it is, right? Mad Dog, right? The guy, you could do those things. But if you decide that you're going to open up a brick and mortar business, you got to run a business first, because a sound financial business provides the opportunities to do your passion projects and do your thing. So if you want to be this amazing content creator, you want to start a certification, you want to, you know, have a platform for whatever it is, right? Having more money is going to help solve that and make you able to do that, right? Like, you know, Dan and I, you know, like to give back to the community. We like, you know, donating to charities and stuff like that. I have a lot of hobbies. Like I said, like I like to fish and hunt, right? Well, running a really good business allows me to do more of all those things. So the more profitable Varsity House is, it's not just filling Joe's and Dan's pockets. It's providing more for the community, donating more money, like, you know, homeless shelters, food banks, you know, all those things that we do. Provide great careers, right? You know, instead of having a gym where everybody's sucking wind and barely making any money and you got a bunch of 1099 part-time trainers, I have full career guys who have been with me, you know, 15, 11, 10, 9 years, right? 7, whatever it is, right? And they're like, you know, Big Mike arguably should be the first guy to retire from Varsity House, you know, as a career person. Maybe he works for us for 30 fucking years. Like, that's amazing. That's a testament to, like, having a plan and saying, like, you know, I'm not going to, and I worked in a whole bunch of gyms, you know. I would say one of the benefits, Dan worked at Parisi's, but one of the benefits of coming into a business situation that he did young was that the slate was kind of clean. I worked in some shitty places, right? And I worked in dozens of shitty gyms. And you know, I've always been a glass half full kind of individual, right? I got kicked in the dick so much as a kid that, like, everything from that point was winning anyway, right? So I think, like, you know, when you have that mentality, like, I'm going to win no matter what, you know, Dan came in with a clean slate and had, like, didn't have a lot of those preconceptions and misconceptions about, you know, what things were supposed to be or how things were supposed to be run. He was just willing to learn. And I think a lot of guys just don't have that. They think they know what they know and this is going to be, and they don't professionalize the business at all.
I would say you brought it up about people before, and I'll just take a leap and literally, like, you know, you look at things, you step back, obviously on the plane ride here, it's like, man, like, I can't believe, like, we're in this position to do this. This is awesome. And the reason why we're here is because of a relationship that's been built with employees from Elite FTS over the years that have never left.
Yep.
And that comes from your ability as a leader to take care of your people.
Yes.
And one of the biggest problems with gyms specifically is it's a personal trainer that's so focused on their clients, they start growing, they can't handle it. They hire somebody and they're just like, all right, just follow me around and do what I say. And they're still totally focused on the client. But the person that could help them make the most money is that new employee, that team member, leveling them up, pouring into them, having empathy for where they want to go and what they're trying to do. Because I look at it now, we don't have a humongous team. We're still a small business, under 20 employees. But when I look around and I walk into our town hall meetings, I look around and I go, we've got some pros on this team that are damn good, and I'll take this crew anywhere and know that we've got a fighting chance because we've got some real strength professionals that could go and run gyms anywhere. And it's because our focus was a long time ago, we started to realize and be mentored. It's like, hey, it's all about the team. If you're going to scale to 600 clients, you can't do it with 2 guys. So we've been focused about team development. It starts even before we even knew it. You know, Joe's background as professor, starting the internship, I went through that process, you know, and it's like, it has been the catalyst for our success. When I look at XYZ gym owner, you know, whoever it is, and they look at their employees or whoever's on their staff as not a permanent thing. And I know people can move on in companies, but if you're going to be a business owner, you're going to have people working for you. So the development of those people and the professionalization of those roles has to improve. You know, somebody like I'm talking about, like Matt, like he wouldn't still be here if he wasn't bought into Elite and where it's going and being taken care of. You know, today's the first day I ever met Gina. Like I was emailing her 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever it was. And for me, as somebody that's always followed along what's gone on here, to me that is a big deal because familiarity, people align with familiarity. You know, customers align with that, and we've put
laws of persuasion.
It is, and we've put in, you know, we've spent a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of care. I mean, my wedding was 50% Varsity House people and our team and their spouses and families. And, you know, that's not going to change anytime soon. And our place of business I can't wait. I mean, my son's 4.5. Like he loves coming to the gym. He can't wait. I can't wait to have him in the set. We're going to age down and start a younger kids session so that he could start training and Antonio can train as well. It's just, we take care of our people. And when you take care of your people, they're going to take care of your business
and your customers.
And your customers. Yeah.
Like now, we're here, right? We're here from Tuesday. We got in yesterday afternoon. Right, we're here till Friday morning. I do not have to call, check in, or nothing. Like I know Mike's got that place on lockdown. Adam, our COO, he's our partner as well. Right, he helps run the operations of all 3 shops. Like they got that shit right, and it's not just because like we're paying them good. It's because they believe in what we're trying to accomplish. And like I said, we hired right. They're hungry, humble, and committed. They have too much pride in themselves for us to come home and things have fallen to shit and be like, what happened here? And it's like, they got too much pride in themselves. Like Mike would never let that happen. He would be so miserably personally distraught that he let that happen on his watch, you know, that he would literally be beside himself. So when you, just to circle back a little bit, you said like, what are some of the key problems? Obviously overspending, going too big, too fast, too far, too quickly. We did that. We fucked that up, right? You know, I went from a garage to a 5,000 square foot to a 20,000 square foot, right? We didn't realize what that big facility was going to. So a couple things that we didn't take into, you know, I want to get to the other bullet points, but a couple things that we didn't take into account, right? All right, so we went from a 5,000 square foot space with a sweetheart lease because it was a shithole, right, to a brand new building, a multi-million-dollar mortgage, right, a piece of property that we own and the building that we own. So there's a long time play here, but like up front, you still got to have the dough and you still got to pay. Yeah. And then we get our first HVAC bill and it was like $2,500 for electric.
It was like what our rent was.
I was like, holy holy shit, every month I'm gonna spend 30 grand on freaking on heating and electric. Holy crap, like turn the fucking heat off. You know what I mean? Like no heat till December, right? You know, and so like little things like that. You know, we had to have the parking lot paved, 35 grand. You had to put in some street lights, you know, 15 grand. We got it right now, we got to redo the sidewalks, kind of chipped up and peeled up a little bit. We got to redo the side. It's probably gonna be like 10 or 15 grand, right? We got to redo the turf at one point because it got destroyed, right? It's a huge turf. It's the indoor turf is 100 by 40, and then outdoors we got 100 by 40, right? We had to do the indoor turf. That was $47,000, right, to replace the turf, right? So all those little things. Now, if that turf was a quarter the size, it'd be 10 grand instead of 47 grand, right? So there's all those things are different. So going big, overspending. Like we said, not having a professional view of the business, not knowing, not having clarity on roles. The worst thing that could happen to an employee, and why most employees fail in any business, is I don't know what success looks like. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how I'm being measured, right? And I'm just showing up every day, kind of doing what I'm told, right? And that's the lowest, shittiest form of leadership. Having a real job app, in a sense, like what we call KRA, key responsibilities and duties, having daily actions, knowing exactly how they're being measured as even as an intern. Hey, this is how you're being measured: by finishing the internship, getting your certification, completing your weekly check marks, stuff like that, right? New coach coming in, hey, the goal is to get you. You're being measured on how quickly we can get you to servicing 20 billable sessions a week. Doing your check-ins every week. You gotta go 90 days, you know, that's 12 weeks in a row doing your check-ins, your reach outs. Like we have a metric for like how many reach outs each coach has to do each week with their clients and shit like that, right? That's what you're being measured on. That's all you can be measured on at that point, because you don't know nothing but coaching, right? Now, Mike, right, our sales director, GM, it's the health of the facility and sales, right? It's like how many sales we're converting, what the conversion rates are, what the dollar value that we're converting people to. You know, if I see that the dollar value keeps going down, it's like, hey guys, are we giving away a fucking ton of deals here? Or are we just selling the lowest price? Like stop defaulting to that, you know, 1 time a week program when the key aim is the 3 time a week program that costs another $150 a month or whatever, right? So, so not knowing not professionalizing the roles. Again, we talked about the marketing plan. Most people's marketing plan today, they see what these influencers. I'm just throwing out names like Juju Mufu, the Liver King. No offense to any of those guys, but they're unique anomalies, right? Again, the local brick and mortar gym owner who's not 250 pounds of yoked up savagery probably isn't, you know, going to have the same cachet. Also, like I look at someone like the Liver King and Juju, they're selling products, their services, shit like that. It's a different thing.
They're not training people.
They're not fucking training. They don't have to stand on a gym floor 30 hours a week, right? And then last but not least, we talked about was just the financial side. If you don't know your data and you don't know your numbers and you're just flying by the seat of your pants, you're just a trainer. And that's like when Dan said to me, like, that's not a business. I'm down in the Cayman Islands with my then now ex-wife, right? And I'm with some friends, and I'm in the Cayman Islands on vacation. I just remember sitting there on the beach stewing, like, that fucking prick. I'm gonna punch him in the face when I get back, right? And I was jokingly, but like I was like, he's right. It's not a business. I don't know the numbers. I'm just worried about like selling sessions. I'm just selling sessions, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm just a dude who has a space. I'm just a trainer. I'm just like, let's call myself a guru, whatever you want. I'm just like this guy who knows how to train, who's got a space. This ain't a business. Joe goes down, there's no business. There's no marketing plan. There's no nothing. Just fucking sell, right? And when I came back, you know, we had some more conversations. Obviously, I knew Dan. I knew a lot of the people around Dan. I had gotten to know his mom and dad really well. And I knew that there was a really strong foundation of you know, he was hungry, humble, and committed himself. You know, Dan, you know, coming from a really nice family who worked hard, all good people, right? He had an intrinsic fire to win too, right? And, you know, some people from our area that we live in now, they got all the money in the world and all the opportunity in the world, and they got no fire. You know, Dan had a burning flame, you know what I mean, and wanted to win. So I was like, all right, like I said, if he needs a job, I'm desperate for help. Maybe we can do this thing. And, you know, here we are, you know.
Well, most gym owners started out as trainers first.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if you're good, you know, there's going to be a cap.
You get busy.
I mean, there's only so many billable hours that you can do, you know, per week. And then when they hit that leads them to, you know, how can I keep growing from here? And 20 years ago, there was like only one path, right? You're going to build a gym, which is actually a career change, where now they could build it.
That's a great point. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, now they could, you know, take their reputation and expand it online and sell courses or whatever, online coaching or whatever they want to do. So those trainers today, they have more options than what they had before. Both are still career changes in their own right.
Sure.
Where you said it earlier, that is the day that you start a business is the day that the business becomes the main thing. You know, it's that career change. I don't think a lot of them really understand that or grasp that or know that the vast difference between the two.
Sure.
You know, and there's a huge difference between the two. I mean, the more it scales, the less you're going to be able to do the actual hands-on coaching, which may be what you actually really love. You know, so that could end up being maybe just 10% of your time at a certain point. So what advice would you give to those people now? Because maybe they do just want to be the geek and learn everything about training and just stay in that avenue and stay in that lane. Now, it may not be able to have the high-end compensation that they may have with their own facility, but it also doesn't have the same risk.
Sure. I mean, so there's a phrase that we use in the business of strength. We call it the coach owner paradox, right? And like very few people, and I was on another podcast last week and we were talking about this, and I said, you know, I don't know still to this day, unless you're already like your dad's like an NFL strength coach or a collegiate strength coach or something like that, but how many parents, when their little son or daughter is born, like, I hope he grows up to be an amazing trainer, right? Like, I can't wait. God, if he just gets a really great career as a strength and conditioning coach, that's going to be amazing, right? Everybody's like, I want to be a lawyer, doctor, whatever, right? So the majority of people who go into fitness, it's a calling, it's coaching, it's a passion. You had your own maybe fitness journey, you lost a bunch of weight, or you're an athlete and you want to kind of keep the locker room vibes going and stuff like that, right? For me, it was obviously like I grew up without a dad, and I think it filled a hole in my life in a sense where I got to mentor young adults and give back, and it made me feel really good doing that, right? And again, I just enjoyed the weight room. I loved training, I loved lifting. I saw it as a way of starting a business that I was passionate about, and my thought process was, shit, I was going to go to the gym every day anyway, right? So whether I was doing construction or engineering or I was a doctor or whatever, like when I was done, I was going to go work out. So when I just turned that into the business, then I don't really have a job, right? So my point is that the majority of people who go into coach and go into the gym business go in for pure passion. They're not business people at all, right? And they don't really understand that. So, and if you're passionate about something and you really dive down the rabbit hole and you try to get really good at it, which is what I did, you know, I was studying all the things, reading all the things, going to all the workshops, right? And in terms of X's and O's, I did get really busy, right? Because I started attracting people. Guys like Dan came in, other college athletes, high school athletes, and the word spread locally that, hey, there's this guy who's got a shop over in, I was in North Vale, New Jersey. Hey, this guy's got a shop. He's doing some crazy ass shit there, but he's turning out some absolute savages. Like, you go train with him. And I had coaches and dads, and, you know, dads beating down the door to come train. And at one point when I left there, like right before me and Dan left, like it was so busy, I'd have 25, 30 kids come in the gym. There'd be 20 kids waiting outside. I was like, hey, you can't come in until we're done training because there's no room in the space, right? So, and we had the same problem when we partnered up a few years later down the road. But there's a crisscross, there's a point, right? There's like a point of no return, right? Where you've gotten really busy because you've gotten good and you're passionate about what you do, and people believe in you, and they say, man, there's this really young, like motivated coach who's doing some cool shit over at this top secret garage gym in the back of a warehouse, right? Which is what it was. So it was kind of cool cachet too. At that time, like 2006, CrossFit was hitting, Joe D was getting his stride, Zach was doing his thing. So, you know, in the realm of Jersey meatheads, there was Zach, Joe, Jay Ferrugia, if you remember Jay, right? He used to write back in the day for like T-Nation Elite too, right? And like those guys were a little bit ahead of me. We're all the same age. We're all about 48 years old, right? But they were a little bit ahead of me of like getting their brand out there, getting online. Those guys were more digital savvy. I was like in the trenches type guy, right? I had also, out of them, you know, went to college, did my master's degree, stayed a little bit longer on the college side of things, kind of not sure what I was going to do. So again, super passionate, got busy. That was the problem. All of a sudden, you know, I got 35, 40 sessions a week that I got to attend to. I got zero time to figure anything out business-wise. You know what I mean? Because you know that if you do 40 billable sessions, it's like 60 hours of actual work, right? So, I mean, I was opening the gym at 6, closing the gym at 9, working all day Saturday and Sunday, right? All day and night. Like, I don't know how many people leave the gym at 9 o'clock after a 15, 16-hour shift and then want to go home and work for 3 hours on writing marketing copy and shit like that. It just wasn't happening, right? I made time in the middle of the day to make my sales calls, update my checkbook. So we call that the coach owner paradox. It's the point of no return where you're the owner operator. You've gotten good at your craft. You've done really well with yourself as a small independent trainer, and you've got busy to the point where now that busy is hampering the ability to work and grow the business.
Unless they're working for somebody like yourself. You see, you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
To where you were in a position where you had to do something because you have your own space, and you kind of became a gym owner without even knowing you became a gym owner.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Where on the other end of that can be, if they want, a career-long profession.
Sure.
100%.
And you could be, look, if you want to just be a career trainer and that's like your total geek, like, so you know, there's not everybody should be a gym owner. And just what we talked about before,
I don't think a lot of people
be for someone, not for everyone.
Yeah.
Owning a fucking small business is not for everybody.
No.
Well, that's kind of where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Some of these people, their main passion is that training, and now there's more places to be able to do
They
that
are
and
two
flourish.
completely different things.
Yeah.
I loved training. I loved it, right? Me and Dan both got lucky that we also both loved the game of business. And when we started getting good at the game of business, we were like, oh, so that adrenaline rush that I used to get from crushing PRs and taking kids to the combine or watching a kid PR on their 40 or whatever, I'm getting now crushing a marketing campaign that drives 50 new members to the gym, or Dan's getting high, like, we had the best month ever, most profitable month ever. Like, we're getting high on that type of stuff. And we just got lucky with that. But I would say that's also kind of what's made us uniquely successful in the realm of the gym game, because a lot of coaches, I hate sales. I don't want to do the marketing. I hate, dealing with employees sucks. If that's your mentality, look, it's like anything. If you tell yourself it sucks, it sucks.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is when you're speaking to a trainer that wants to move on, to be able to do something like this, what are the tells that you see that you would be able to go back to them to say, you know what, maybe this isn't, you wouldn't say this. Maybe it's not the right time, for you to do that. Because you don't want to say, look, you don't want to do this unless.
I think you need to show them that, like, you have to ask them, like, what is your goal? Like, what do you want to do professionally?
You know what they're going to say. They're going to say they want to make more money.
Yeah, exactly. So if that's what they say, it's like you have to show them the path. Like, let's take somebody, for instance, that is an influencer. And when you guys were talking, it just popped in my mind because he speaks to this. And he's probably like one of the only people that speaks to being like, hey, I never wanted to own a gym, is Ben Bruno. Ben was an intern at Boyle's Spot, and he said, you know what? I don't want to open a gym. I love training people. So what did he do? He moved to an area where there's a high propensity for people that love to train and have money. He picked up his life and moved to, I don't know, wherever, LA.
West Hollywood.
And he still talks about it. Now he's online, but he's like, hey, I still coach 25 sessions a week. He does it out of his garage, and he charges a fair rate. And to those people, like, hey, I want to make more money. Cool. Well, like, let's fill up your book. And once your book is filled, well, there's two ways that you can go in business. It's, okay, you can either add capacity by opening your own gym and hiring people to run your training programs, or you raise the rate on the sessions that you got. It's not that hard. You just have to have the freaking cojones to say to somebody, to have that conversation. Hey, we've been training for 3 years together. My rate's going from 100 to 120. And be willing to allow them to be like, I'm not going to pay that, and have confidence that you can replace that hour. And it sucks, but you're going to make 20% more money off of the same amount of time. And you're exchanging time for money here. And that personal trainer, you can do that for a while, and then you get to a point where, like, all right, well, now I want to get some time back. Okay, well, then what I would educate them to do is, all right, what are some non-negotiables? Okay, you don't like working on Saturdays? Cool. Don't work Saturdays, but maybe to make up those 5 sessions, you never do 5 a.m., so maybe we got to hang out 5 a.m. 3 days a week to make up 3 of those 5 hours, and on Friday nights you're done at 4 o'clock. Well, now you're going to be done at 6 o'clock, and now you got your Saturdays. So there's ways to adjust the time money continuum for a personal trainer, but we got to figure out what is that goal, like what is it. And if they say, oh, I want to make, whatever it is, I mean, 300,000, you're probably not going to do that doing personal training on your own unless you go to, New York City or LA or San Francisco.
And then you'd have to be a celebrity trainer, like training like elite celebrities to make that type of money. A good trainer in a good market can easily make like $1.25, 100 Once you get up to that 150 mark, you're starting to get into the Ben Bruno categories where you're like a celebrity trainer. You're working with like A-list celebrities, and you could maybe charge them $250, $350 an hour for like training sessions. But like, again, like for us, we have some very wealthy people training with us, very billionaires training in our gym, right? And they're very conscious of the money. I don't care how much.
That's why they're where they're at.
I don't care how much money. There are not just piles of people growing on trees who want to spend, $1,500, $2,000 a month on fitness.
No.
So now again, if I'm Tom Cruise and I got a $50 million, $100 million, I got the next Mission Impossible coming out. Yeah, okay, you're Tom Brady. Yeah, all right, I'm going to spend several $100,000 to $1 million on body care for the year because my ROI on that is ginormous, right? But for the average business person or whatever, or mom and dad, an adult avatar for us, right? They don't see it. They just see it as an expense, right? Health is a byproduct of that, and obviously we're the most healthy we've ever been as a society, right? Because people don't value their health. They'd rather go out and buy a Louis Vuitton purse for $2,000 than put $2,000 down and have a gym membership for the year, right? And so there's that. So when we look for like gym, I think one of the things that's helped us with our community, with our coaches, and I want like entrepreneurs. I want people. In my ideal business, in my ideal world for our employees, is that they don't all have to be business owners, and they're probably not all going to leave to open up their own gyms. But I want them to understand the business side of things. So Dan alluded before that we're pretty much open book. Like just about our entire full-time team knows every penny coming in and out without like giving away people's salaries and just flat out telling them that, hey, this is what me and Dan take from the business or blah, blah, blah. The books are there, the goals are there, the metrics are there. They see everything, right? Obviously with the business consulting, a lot of them sit in on those, right? And when we started doing the 2-day workshops years ago, we would have our employees, take the workshop with them. They were like our first guinea pigs and like testing out some of the things we were going to teach to people, right? And stuff like that. And over the years, I think one of the things that a lot of our people have said, including Mike, right, who's a phenomenal employee, he said, like, I would never want to be in your shoes, right? Now that I know the stress, the anxiety, the work that it takes, the Saturdays, the Sundays, like, for me and Dan, it's Varsity House 24/7, 365. I'm on vacation. Do I try and shut it off? Yeah, of course, but I never fucking do. I'm sitting in the tree stand hunting. I'm fucking texting people, right? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's never there. Where like if you're an employee on Friday afternoon, you're like, fuck this place, and I'll see you everybody Monday, right? And you leave. So there's some solace in that. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think they need to factor that into their decision, right? Because we all know that people that are full-time trainers that, let's say they're making $100,000 a year, then they trade that to be a gym, $100,000 a year working 40 billable hours. Then they trade that to be a gym owner and to make $30,000 a year and work 120 hours a week.
I think the average salary is like for a gym owner in North America is like $45,000.
Yeah. So what they're trying to do is because they're so busy, they're trying to actually work less, but then they go to something that they're going to end up actually working twice as much.
Correct.
For a fraction of what they're actually making. And that conversation that you just said, the ability to be able to leave and not have to think about it, until you come back in.
There's power in that. For some people want it. My wife is a perfect example. My wife's a phenomenal employee. She's got a great job. She does really well where she's at, right? She would not want to be an owner of that business. Yes. She loves being an A+ employee, right? She's a phenomenal employee. But there's a certain, she gets to leave with the lack of anxiety. She does not have to worry about if they're having a down month, she still gets paid, right? And so like I think like again like a question like you said, what's the tell? The tell is like if I was speaking to somebody who's telling me that they want to be a gym owner, and I said, look, being a business owner, gym or not, means that you're going to have employees who are going to be relying on you to put food on their families' tables. Are you okay with the responsibility of knowing that somebody else's lives is in your hand? Because that's the biggest responsibility that Dan and I have. Because now we've committed ourselves to growing a brand that other people, other grown-ass men and women, have said to us, this is my career. I want to die here at Varsity House. This is how I'm going to feed my babies. Like our business partner, Adam, his wife is literally days away from giving birth to their first kid. He just bought a beautiful home in North Jersey. Not cheap, right? This shit has to work. And Dan and I go home with that stress every day. If you can't look at yourself in the mirror and say, I got that shit, I'm going to make sure, like, you know, I will cut my paycheck before Mike doesn't get paid, then it ain't for you. You know, if you're a selfish mindset or you just like, hey, man, I just want to worry about me, my money, my family and shit like that, don't go into business because that's not for you. Dan and I went many paychecks where we didn't take a paycheck or we didn't take our bonuses because Mike had to get paid. Yeah. And at that point, and even as far as like, you know, he's been with us for 15 years, 10 years ago, like, this was his career. And again, I'm not going to let him down. So it's really, I take that shit personally. I have a lot of pride in knowing that we have provided amazing jobs for people. And when Mike's going home and Mike has a conversation with his wife, it's you know, Varsity House is going to do this, we're going to do that. You know, and he's excited about where we're going and what we're doing. And they're planning their life moves, buying homes, having a family based on the projection that he perceives and sees that within our company. That's fucking important. And that takes balls of steel for most people. You don't have
and real projections.
Yeah.
And you can't
and
sell,
real business. Yes,
you
exactly.
can't sell people on a false fantasy.
Right. Like, oh yeah, bro, you're gonna make $150,000 a year. It's like, all right, and you have no idea how you're gonna get there.
Yeah.
This industry too, like you look at, I mean, my mother was a teacher for 40 years. She never wanted to be an administrator, and there was nothing wrong with just being a great teacher. In this industry, for whatever reason, if you become a great trainer, everybody's like, you open, literally, I mean, how many times have people asked Big Mike, be like, when are you going to open your own gym? That's all anybody would ever, you know, and he would flat out tell her, like, I don't want to open my own gym. I like this gym. I like what we've built here. I want to run this gym. And I'm not sure why that is the case, because you look at, like, with football coaching, my offensive line coach from college is, you know, almost 20 years later, he's still an offensive line coach. Like, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be the head coach. You don't have to be front office or whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with that in those fields. And as it pertains to strength and conditioning, there's nothing wrong with being a lifelong coach. We're still coaching. I just found passion with my role right now. I'm finding a lot of the same, those same fulfilling professional highs coaching our team and coaching other gym owners to live out their professional goals as gym owners. We started trainer school in 2023 because of this, to say, you know what, not everybody wants to open a gym, but that doesn't mean a trainer at another gym can't increase their value to the point where that gym owner is thrilled to have them and forced to pay them. Yeah. So let's give them that opportunity. And, you know, there just should be, people need to, in our industry, it's still pretty new, right? Like, it is still pretty new. We have first generation people that are like, were strength coaches for their whole lives. I don't know one person that was a strength coach their whole life that retired as it, but it's going to start to happen. And, you know, I'm proud that we're helping to professionalize the industry, and really it starts with the trainer, right? It starts with the trainer becoming a better employee in the gym that they're at, and help to just professionalize this as a whole. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with being a lifelong trainer that knows how to deliver upon results for a client and help that gym get what they want to.
With there's more opportunity than what they think.
Yes,
for sure. If I use my own personal training career as an example, was, you know, I built a clientele and I built, you know, trainers underneath me where I was at, you know, to where it got to a point I personally know what I was being compensated was a break even across the board. There's no way there. I was getting paid 80%, then 5% of what all the other trainers were. But I was able to negotiate that because the other trainers that I was helping were generating more revenue to be able to, in other words, the culture I was helping to, their culture that I was helping to facilitate, took me from a 50%, actually it might have been 40%, basically to double. Because if you had a coach that's working for you now that over exceeds the culture far more than anybody else, is always full, and then is helping other trainers come in,
you have to pay them
to become better. You have to pay them. You have to, because, and it may even get to a point you're paying them and they're just breaking even, on their personal thing. Now, at that point, they're going to understand, look, I get they can't pay me anymore,
right?
Because of all that. But I don't think a lot of trainers see that as an opportunity.
And I think there's so many opportunities too. Like, you could be a great trainer, but you could still get way better at sales. Like, I think again, like, maybe you don't want to run the business. Maybe you don't want to be like doing marketing and like all videos and like writing copy and stuff like that. But again, I mean, as far as like a trainer's role on the gym floor, if you're a good trainer, you're going to develop good soft people skills, and you can make a shit ton of sales on the gym floor just by knowing who you're training and following up with them every week. Dave, great job this week. You made all 12 sessions this month. I'm really proud of you. It's literally, that's all it takes, right? Keep Dave happy. Keep patting him on the ass and pumping him up and keeping the train moving in a positive direction. It's, hey, Dave, you were coming like a bat out of hell. I haven't seen you like more than once or twice the last couple of weeks. Where the fuck you been? Like, you need a little help, you need a little pep talk, you need some nutrition. What do we got going on? A lot of times it's just life happening. Oh man, I got killed at work, had a family vacation, come back, haven't been able to get back on the horse. Let's go, dude. Like, when's your next session? Let me get you booked, right? Reactivation. And it's the next one is, Joe, that was awesome. I love this place, man. You guys are the best. I can't believe, I'm so lucky I found you guys. Hey, you mind give me a really good, Google review or testimonial about that, right? So other people could see that and believe they could do it too, right? And then obviously the referral side of it, I think my wife would love this, or my brother would love this place. Bring him in next week. 3 sessions on me, man. Bring him in with you. We'll train, see if he likes it. If it's a good fit, we'll get him set up. We'll hook him up, right? If he signs up, have like a referral deal, like we do 100. Like, hey, if he signs up, I'll give him $100 off his first month. I'll give you $100 credit on your next, whatever it is, right? If that's all it is, but you do that with like real good, like Mike is the master of that, and that's what got him to the sales role he's in now, because he was like, you had a great session, dude. You got to give me a review, bro. Like, leave, he was, and it was just super casual because he was delivering the goods. So you could be a world class trainer with like, let's call 80 to 90% of your ability focused on being a great trainer, and 10% of it just like learning how to have those little cues and make a lot of sales, and you could be successful inside somebody's business. Now, if you do want to take it a step further, like, again, because I think you will, at some point, you will max out your earning capability, right? Because you can only raise the rates. You can't, if you're in another person's gym where everybody's charging $100 an hour for personal training and you're charging $250, there's probably going to be a disconnect there, right? So like, there's just a reality of that, right? And so I think you'll get to a point, whatever that is, 100 grand, 125 grand, 150, who knows, right? Depending on your market, right? Like LA or New York, maybe it's a little higher, right? Out here in Columbus, it might be a little lower, right? I think like if you're a trainer working for another facility here in Columbus, getting to 100 grand is probably a stretch, right? So you might say to yourself, now I want to open up a gym. But then you see what, like, me and Dan are talking about, and you're like, I don't know if I have the juice for that. I don't know if I have that. Well, that's when you have to think long and hard about, like, all right, what skills do I have? What am I good at? What skills don't I have? And either it's a who, not how issue, right? It's like, I either have to get somebody to partner with me, work for me, who I'm going to hire an operator, and I'm going to be the product, right? And it's like, I'm going to hire an operator. And I look at like Eric Cressy, who has his partner Pete, right? Like, Pete was more the business operator, CEO, COO type guy, and Eric was the product guy, right? And it was like, okay, that's a great dynamic. You had one guy with one set of skills and passions, and one guy with another set of skills and passions, right? They made a great pair, right? And so that, knowing, again, that knowing what you know and what you don't know, I think having the the lack of ego to say to yourself, well, I'm really fucking terrible at business. I don't know anything, but I'm a world-class coach. I'm an awesome coach. Let me go out and find a business person and see if they want to do this gym thing with me or they want to work for me and so forth. So you can figure that out if you want to open up your own business. But again, I think this business as a whole, barrier of entry is pretty small, pretty low. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to take real mentorships. You can just get certifications. So the barrier of entry is low. Most people are coming in passion. They don't realize that there's a true business involved. And you could open up a gym for, our gyms generally, cost in the realm of 125 to 150 grand to open up. We have friends that are doing them for about 100. You could probably get one open for 75, 50 to 75 for like a little box gym, kind of really devoid of like, you got like some cheesy rigs and stuff like that, but whatever, but like you can get it going, but you're still going to run a business at that point. And I think like, if I knew what I knew now, I would say, all right, well, I'm either going to hire, maybe it's a part-time, maybe it's a client that you have that was like, an office administrator, and it's a woman who works for you that she ran a dental office and she wants to come help you run your gym business and so forth, right? But like you have to find somebody with those other skills, because no matter how you slice it, those skills are a requirement for running a good business. And if it's not going to be you got two choices: don't run a business, or go hire the skills.
Were there any topics you guys want to talk about I didn't bring up?
We covered a ton. I'm trying to think. Obviously, no, I pretty much we didn't talk too much about scaling and like kind of the mindset there. I thought that would be kind of cool.
Let's go into that.
Yeah, a little bit on that would be cool. So, I guess so we talk about scaling your gym, because a lot of gym owners, we say you want to go bigger, right? So that's a form of scale, right? You're going to go bigger. But one of the things that we've learned, and this kind of came from, one of our business mentors and our CFO, right? Something called like demographic saturation. And you might not see it as much with like a product-based business where you can ship product nationally, right? But in a local brick and mortar business, the reality is that I'm getting most of my clients to come from a 3 to 5 mile radius. And I would say the majority of them are coming from like a 1 to 2 mile radius, right? They're locals. They live close to the gym. And you look at like our headquarters. We've been in our area of the north corner of New Jersey. We're in that northeast corner. We're like really, really tucked up in the northeast corner, like on the border of New York right there, right? We're literally, I could spit on New York. And the current property that we're in now is the first piece of property over the border in New York. We sit on the border of 2 counties that have 1 million people in them. 1 million people in Bergen County, like 850,000 people in Rockland County, New York, right? But we've been in that community now, since 2006. So let's just say, for the sake of this argument, that we've cycled through 10,000 people in the course of those 20 years, okay? And we have 400 members at headquarters. It gets harder and harder and harder to continue to attract people, especially this is like a community that most families come to live in for long periods of time. So they're planted there. Mm-hmm. And if I'm constantly stay in that one facility, and let's say we said to ourselves like, hey, we got this 20,000 square foot, we want to go bigger, I'm going to deck out the other side, we're going to put a health club in, we're going to do all these things in this one spot, I might not have the demographics in terms of population to support that anymore, right? So when we talk about scaling, I'm almost always going to try to talk a gym owner out of going bigger. If you have a really great, profitable, thriving business and it's 1,000 square feet, stay there. Maybe go 500, go to 1,500. You could increase the capacity a little bit, but you're probably better off going to a new location. And that sets a whole another series of problems in terms of splitting yourself, having to go to 2 different places. We learned that too.
Well, demographic research for one.
Yeah, but just like, so like, let's just say like what we just currently did, right? So I got 400 members in one gym. I got 120 or so in another gym. We just opened up the 3rd in the spring, okay? It's way easier to get the first 100, 150 people to flood into a new gym because it's new, cool, and exciting in a brand new market than it is for us to get another 150 members at HQ would take enormous amounts of energy and money, right, on the marketing side of things. But when we opened up a new gym, I had a $25,000 marketing budget. It was like, founding members, half off your first month, little discount for life, blah, blah, blah. We opened the doors that first day with like 90 plus people sold on that. Now we had some attrition because there were, deal takers. They took the first month deal and canceled their membership, stuff like that. But way easier to get to the first 100 in a new market than to add another 100 to an existing business. And most people, and again, most gym owners just don't realize that. It's like, I'm going to double it. I'm going to go to a 5,000 square foot space and double the population. I was like, wow, that's going to take a lot of fucking work, as opposed to just like go 10 miles down the road and open up a new spot. So when I think of scaling to new locations is way easier. And you just create a reproducible model. And like what Dan and I have done is we've deduced the business down to the most profitable service offerings with the minimum effective dose of coaching. So like in real time, one of our consulting members was thinking about maybe offloading one of his businesses, right? And it's just a little bit bigger and outside the model of what we would ideally look for. But it was exciting because it was attractive possibility, right? It's like, all right, we could, this could be a really good thing. It's in a good location. It has some clients already. And obviously when you're looking to get out of gym, you usually, don't get quite what you want for it. So you could probably get a decent rate on it, right? To take it over, right?
Yeah.
But it's twice the size of what we're looking for and we require twice the staff. So for us, it's just a hard no because we know what we want to do going forward. And it's like, I want one coach in the morning, one coach in the afternoon, and maybe if we have to, have a part-timer swing in there. That way you got two people making excellent money, right, doing really, really good, and we're making what we need to make on the profit side. And it's a simple, profitable, fun business that if shit hits the fan and one of those persons shits down their leg and, falls apart or whatever, I can easily put a new person in. I don't have to get 6 new people. I got to get one dude or one girl in there and to run the shop. And I think like when you start to think at scale, it's like, all right, Dan and he's incredibly creative and smart in all realms, marketing and sales. But generally, when you do like some cognitive tests, like I score a little bit higher on quick start / creativity and things like that. So my brain works in 50 different directions, right? I tend to be a multiplier, right? Like I want to add things, add more classes, add more service offerings, things like that. Now
he's got to pull it back.
And he's got to pull it back. So I've learned, obviously, over the years of doing business, that simple wins the battle almost every time, right? And I think, like a lot of gym owners, what we've learned is that when you have a simple business, it's easy for everybody to digest, right? It's easy for the employees to know how they impact the business and what they need to do every day. And it's easy for the clients to understand where they fit in the service offer. It's like when you only have one product, 3 price points, 2 coaches, right? A small gym that I can stand here and see everybody in front of me, right? It's not like in my gym, there could be 50 people training at one point in time at the big gym, right? It's so much simpler and easier to run. And all those systems then become repeatable and reproducible way easier. Like there's a lot of things at HQ that if we were to like let's say disband the whole place and open up a new place, that all those things would die. And like when we started scaling, we were like, all right, what here needs to die? And
we still work with we've worked since our realization that we didn't know shit when we went to visit Pat years ago. Since then we've paid for consulting every year. Hey, we pay for coaching, like, hey, what are we doing that we're in it, so what are we not seeing? And when we decided to scale, we were working with our business coach, Vince Gabriel, and he said something that still it rings in my mind. It affects the subconscious of doing business all the time, and it's that growth and control work inversely of one another. So if you're a coach that loves coaching and you want to see the product and be in it and be spotting people and adjusting and helping your coaches kind of patrol the floor, you can't do that in 3 businesses at the same time. So even if you want to, even if you go to each one, you go here on Monday, here on Tuesday, and you're driving fences and seeing what's going on, like you won't be able to do it as much as you can in one space. And if you can't make peace with that, you're never going to be able to scale effectively. And for us, I know like Joe and I, the way that we did business for such a long time, and it was baked and it was innate, is that we were in it. We were living it. We were there all the time. We were part of the freaking walls in the place. the expansion plan, it can't be like that anymore.
Yeah.
So the control of it, I know for myself, is like, hey, this feels uncomfortable, and it is uncomfortable. So
and I have a little bit more of a problem with that than he does. Like Dan, and the reason why, like a couple years ago with Vince's help, and Vince, I give Vince a lot of credit. Vince has been an amazing friend and mentor to us too, and has helped us a ton. Who also does business consulting and stuff like that. He's a great guy, and sharp dude who's a consistent learner too. And he basically, one day we had a consult with him and a group of other like high performing gym owners. Mark, who was on the podcast, was a good friend of ours, right? Who's a savage in the industry, right? Killer, right? And we had a bunch of guys. We're in a room full of a bunch of heavy hitters, and we had done some cognitive testing, like to kind of see where our work abilities were at, right? And it was really just like hearing Dan speak, and his brain goes straight to the analytics, where I'm like pie in the sky creativity guy, like we could do this, like I'm marketing. That's why I love the marketing so much. And really, it was like a hard pill to swallow, sort of. But I'm not an ego guy. If it's going to help us win, great. And they were like, I think you guys are in the wrong roles. I think Dan should be the CEO, run the team, run the dollars. He's more of a trains on time type guy. He's a little bit more of a what's called a follow through. Like he's going to be the one to, hey Dave, did you get that done yet? Hey Dave, where I'm like, what were you supposed to get done? Like if it ain't written down, it doesn't exist. Like and so forth. And Joe, you should be the marketing, because you're the founder. You speak well, you present well, you could freaking talk to a fucking brick wall, and you're going to go out and sell the product pretty much better than anybody because you created it, right? And so forth. So in that room at that time, it was like ice. It was like the fucking room had frozen over. Like people thought we were going to go home and kill each other, and we were never coming back, and like we were breaking up as a couple. But honestly, we went home like pumped up. I said, dude, I can totally see that, right? So, success in business and scaling also means you have to sometimes, have that humility to say, like, you know what, man, like I think the business would be best served with you doing this now, and I'm going to try something different. And what it did for us both was it did bring out our own personal superpowers and brought that to life. And B, I think it energized the shit out of us because we got to do something new and different. And after nearly, that was 2018. Yeah, 2019, we made the switch. So it was like right around 2018. Yeah, I've been in business already myself for a long time, but us together since 2006. So we're talking 12 years of me being the CEO, right? And kind of like worrying about the payroll, looking at the finances, worrying about team development, all this shit, right? And it's not that I don't have anything to do with that anymore, but it's like, it's your fucking problem now, pal, right? And it's like, I got to do something new and exciting that was fresh. I got to learn a whole new skill set. And it was like, all right, I'm going to dive deep down the rabbit hole. I went out and took a whole bunch of copywriting, marketing workshops, digitech workshops and stuff like that. And it was like, man, I'm learning all sorts. I'm drinking from a fire hose, learning all this cool new shit that we could bring back to the gym to increase our presentation and attract new clients. And he went and took a Goldman Sachs course. It's called the 10,000 Small Business Leaders course, which is super heavy on the financial side. And I could see a difference like every week where his knowledge was improving to the point where like, it's almost like he's almost a CFO quality guy in the gym industry now. And he's helping, hundreds of gym owners a year with our consulting business master and monitor their finances better. And he gets excited about that. I'm sick of looking at the bank accounts. I did that for a long time and I was never as good. It's not a passion of mine. So I think like that, when you're talking about scaling, simplicity scales, smaller is better because the risk is way lower, right? Like if I wanted to, it cost us about $2.5 million to open up our headquarters, including the property and everything like that, right? So it was just under $2.5 million, like 2.4 million, right? If we want to do that today, that was a decade ago. That was 2013, 2014 when we started construction in 2013. Now maybe it's 5, 6, right? It's like it's not even worth it. Like you're never getting your money back on that ever. So there's no even point in even trying to do that. Like we would never. That business dies. That scale dies with HQ. And if we didn't own the building and property, it wouldn't even be worth it at this point. We would just sell it and go open up. I could take the resources and people from HQ and open up 5 more gyms like that, the smaller ones. Basically each one of our head guys gets in gym and we take the dozen power racks that we have in there and we put them in, exactly, and you just move the gear around. And I think scaling is not just equipment, it's not just money, it's mindset, it's delegation, it's letting go, right? It's letting go, like Dan talked about. I have a tough time, maybe because I'm a little older too, and I did grow up with no cell phones, and I maybe because of my personal background, having to like crawl myself out of the mud. Like work ethic was something that I hung my hat on, like, you know, like, and I judged, and in the first rendition of our partnership, and when Big Mike was there, like, your judgment was like kicking ass on the gym floor. Like, are you a savage coach? Are you busy as shit? Do you have people calling the gym? Like, the best compliment ever was when people started calling the gym and asking for him and Big Mike and not me. And it was like, now I know these fuckers are working hard. Like, they're doing it, right? And like, now it's not necessarily that our people aren't working as hard. We're just working really much smarter as a business, but it's still hard for me to separate the lack of control sometimes. Like, I want to drive down to the gym like every, you know, spy missions and shit. And the reality is, the more I'm out of there, the better they run, you know? So I try to, you know, provide the value and coaching and mentoring when I need to. And as a general rule, Dan and I have 2 advisory meetings in each place per month, right? So technically we're there for about 90 minutes every other week in the satellite facilities. And even that sometimes is a lot less. We could be done with a meeting in 45 minutes if it's just key metrics and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think we've hired, like I said, decent people that understand what they need to do. And we didn't talk about hiring and recruiting. When you scale, your marketing processes have to scale. Your leadership process has to scale, but your ability to hire and recruit has to scale. We used to just build our business on the summer internship because of my relationship with the university. That shit stopped working, like, once you want to grow quick, right? So now you had to be able to attract, you know, hiring is marketing, right? Good job offering, a cool company that I come work for. What's the culture going to be like? Interviews, right? Are you a decent interview? I know I wasn't. Like, you know, who are some of the people what are some books you read, right? It's like, you know, really get into the core values and like what these people's mindset is. And then having an onboarding and development plan, like, you know, so again, Dave comes to work for us, everything sounds really great, and then he shows up day one, and it's like, all right, just train, man, just get to work. And it's like, all right, like, you know, and weeks go by where there's not a lot of, like, you know, feedback or whatever. Like, so now, like, we have like a very stringent on the job training program, education program, things like that, and we didn't have any of that stuff before. So if you want to scale, you know, before you open up any more gyms or grow bigger, number one's got to be a powerhouse. It's got to be running smooth, efficient, systemized, automated, right? And you should be able to take a vacation for a month from that first facility, and nobody gives a fuck that you're gone. And then you know you're ready to go for number one. And if that's not the case, if you go away for 2 weeks and the fucking sky is falling and the place is falling apart, you probably got some work to do. Yeah, you know. And that's where that's where we come in. And people ask, like, hey, how did you guys do it? And we get a lot of questions too about our partnership and stuff like that. How have you guys had a basically almost a 20-year partnership without killing each other? It's like, well, we've come close a few times. Yeah. You know, we've come close. I mean, we're both, you know, we're both competitors, so we want to win, you know, and I always say, like, you know, with your staff as a leader, you know, again, Dan is the captain. Dan runs the ship. You know, Dan runs the team. Dan runs the ship. Dan's driving the boat. But I'm the founder and the overall, like, in a sense, like, OG mentor, kind of, you know, original guy in the business. So, you know, the main person that I'm trying to influence on a weekly and daily basis is Dan and my management team, right? And I think, you know, if I could look back at my own personal career and my own personal leadership style, if there was one thing that I did correct, it was that I was never afraid to give somebody a platform, a purpose, and a position within the company to create, grow. If Dan wanted to create a new program, or he wanted to start a different class, or he wanted to try a different marketing tactic, or he wanted to, you know, maybe even like recently we changed accounting firms, and that was all him. I was like, dude, if you think that's going to give us the best shot to win, you do this. And I allow people to make their decisions and have a voice within the company, right? I think that shows volumes for my character and my ability to say, hey, I don't know everything. So if you think you can, Dave, if you're a better salesman, like let's design a better sales process, you know, and do it. And that's kind of flowed over to Dan, and I see him leading the team with empathy and authority at the same time. And I look down at Mike, and Mike's down on the gym floor, and he's got a whole group of our younger coaches around him, and you know, he's educating them, teaching them, he's showing them what he's doing on the computer. This is how I make sales every day. This is what I'm saying to people. This is why you got to know the product, the process, the prices inside and out, right? And he's educating them. That only happens because we've fostered a culture of sharing, live, learn, pass on, right? It's like, hey, if I only thing I knew was training when I started. I taught Dan and Mike every single thing I knew. Everything that I ever was taught in training, I tried to teach to them. And now they're doing the same thing as they pass it down to the next person. So.
What did you have something you want?
Yeah, with that, just to piggyback off that, you have like one of my favorite books. I think everybody should read is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Like for any business, but the foundation of that book is not like, okay, the teams that are doing well, the foundation of it is not the results that they're getting. The foundation of it is trust that, hey, we're all in this together. We are the core values of this company, and we will not be without conflict. And we've had a lot of conflict, but at the end of the day, when we
were yelling
home,
at each other last week.
Yeah, but I mean, who doesn't like look at any great team? I think the apathy is like, that's the complacency. That's the kiss of death. If I showed up, I was like, that's not right, but I don't give a fuck. That's a problem. You know, like where I might be challenging him on something, but he knows that I'm challenging him because I want to win. Yeah. And I might challenge somebody, and I'm not going to put them out or like make them feel like less of a person in front of others and things like that. Not that things happen in the heat of the moment, but by and large, we try to take care of each other first, and know that like, hey, there's always been a trust to, hey, we're in this together, and we want to bring this thing forward and realize our life's goal and mission as it pertains to this business. And that has been the precursor to the results that we have achieved. It's been trust, and if you can trust one another, there will be the opportunity to have differences of opinions. And that, if somebody's listening to this and wants to partner up, if you don't trust the person, or you don't trust the people you're working with, like truly trust them, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is now Dan and I have transcended, coach, mentor, just being business partners. Like we're friends, and there's only like literally like 2 or 3 other people in my life that I hang out with that I want to be with more than him and his family, right? And like just like last night, I'm talking about like it's mine and my wife's 10-year anniversary in 2 weeks, right? And I was like, I think I don't think I have any, a babysitter for Antonio, so we're just gonna take him with us. He's like, dude, you want me? He's like, we'll take him. It's like, again, I trust you with my kid. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's a lot of inherent trust there, and I think like we have a saying, in our business, we're gonna disagree about a lot of shit. Maybe you don't like a salesy marketing tactic that I put out. Maybe the clients are coming in. Maybe it's a little confusing. Maybe Dan got on me for being a little aloof in team meetings, right? Which is honest and true, right? It is. I tend to be, if we ain't to the point in 15, 20 minutes, mm-hmm. I'm on fucking Pluto, right? And that's just my brain. And if I got work that's got to be done, like my brain's already like, all right, I got shit to do. Like this is fucking going nowhere, right? And he gets pissed because it's a bad look for other mm-hmm. people. He's like, hey, if you're not paying, you're the founder. If you're not paying attention, then the signal to everybody else is like, they don't have to fucking pay attention. Mm-hmm. Like, why even have meetings at that point? It's like, all right, you're right, and it's not from a place of like Joe, like he's being a dick. It's like, yo, man, the optics are not good, and you're teaching other young employees that's okay. And it's like, all right, man, you're right. So the intentions are great, so it's like, we're going to disagree on a bunch of shit. We're going to have healthy conflict. We're going to call each other out on our bullshit, right? But the intentions, the winner there, the intentions are, we're like family, and he's like my brother. And, I don't want to, there's not another human being on planet Earth other than my wife and my son that I want to see succeed better than him, So when you have that, a lot of great things can happen. And I think that you've seen it on the lifting side. There's giant egos in this business. Mm-hmm. Giant. Dudes with muscles generally tend to have very large but fragile egos. Mm-hmm. right? They're as big as human, they're as big as houses, but they can be very sensitive, you know, and they can be very small inside when they have to look at the mirror and look at themselves and really start to make some personal changes in their actions, their personalities, and the way in which they communicate with other humans, right? Especially as business scales. And maybe Dan and I are better trainers than some of the people we have on the gym floor right now, right? But belittling them or looking down on them or thinking less of them doesn't do anything to help the business, right? And so letting go and being accepting and seeing that person maybe is starting off, like I look at some of our young team now, they're way better than where I was at 23 years old. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I was a complete dipshit. I was still partying my ass off at 23 years old. You know, all I cared about was make money Monday through Friday, drink beers Friday through Sunday, you know?
Yeah.
And so now I think, like, obviously now if I drink beers like 2 days in a row, I'm fucking completely shot, you know? But I think that's been, and you see it here in your business where you know, if you want to, you know, go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, you got to build a great team, and a great team is always built on trust.
Mm-hmm. What would be the best way for people to reach you guys?
So obviously our Instagrams are both pretty a good spot. So mine is Coach Joe Strong. You can email Dan or myself at Dan or Joe at Varsity House Gym, and check out our websites at the business. It's just businessofstrength.com and varsityhousegym.com. If you want to check out the gyms, reach out to us. Most people who communicate with us for a consult, your first call is free. Schedule a free strategy call. We'll see if we can solve a problem on that call and see where we can add value and help you. And from that point on, we have a couple ways that we can work together, depending on what you need.
Any final thoughts?
Oof.
Well, thank you for having. My final thought is, for me, this is a nostalgic moment, Dave. I've been a big fan for a long time, my entire career. I watched you guys from nothing, from powerlifter to powerhouse in the industry. I'm very appreciative to have us on. I got a picture of me standing on the platform with you there coaching from that 2005 workshop. And I some of the people that I met at that workshop, I'm still very close friends with and have had the opportunity now to do business with and work with. And so it's a testament to the community, to the connections that in-person things like this, coming to meet, see each other, shaking hands, going to events, what Elite has done for the industry in terms of giving back knowledge, information, and connection has been tremendous. And, you know, I hope to be part of it and hope to see it continue for the next decade.
Thank you.
Yeah, just happy to reiterate that. Just the live, learn, pass on, to have the opportunity. You know, when Joe said that this opportunity was going to present, like one day you posted on your social media, like, hey, who's somebody that you should have on as a guest? And I put his name on there. Is it Coach Joe Strong? And then like a bunch of people started hitting it up. And then Matt's like, you guys are a package deal. And he texted me, he's like, hey, I'll see what we could do. And then it just came through. And to have the opportunity to pass on is something that it's a special moment, and you know, definitely don't take it for granted at all. And you know, thank you to yourself and the rest of the Elite team. You know, we as a company would not be where we're at without the education that was provided at a point where we really couldn't afford it. I mean, the Elite FTS forum is one that we read every single day, and printed articles, shared articles, YouTube, everything. So thank you, Dave, and to the Elite crew.
Well, thank you guys for coming out, and thank you for the support over the years, and we're done.
Awesome, man. That was great. Thanks so much.